Yesterday, this kid was the laughingstock of his clan, getting dragged by his hair and used as a human test subject for lethal poisons. His bullies thought he was just a helpless punching bag that could torment forever. Today, he's cratering their faces into the dirt with a single punch and shattering the ground with their unconscious bodies. The terrifying truth is that these bullies aren't actually fighting a weak 12-year-old boy. This guy has spent 100 years swinging a single blade just to understand one sentence his master left him. Most people would have quit after a week, but our boy has been out here in the dirt for a century. He's finally about to find out what happens when you reach the end of the sword. Our boy stands alone, driven by the command to find the true limit of his craft. Resting on a high cliff, he remembers the day his master died and left him with nothing but this massive weapon. He has swung that blade every day for 100 years, his shadow haunting these rocks through a lifetime of isolation. A piece of his ribbon drifts down the cliffside, signaling that his long wait is finally finished. Our protagonist sits at the edge of a high cliff with his back turned, his large sword resting beside him as he reflects on reaching the pinnacle of his martial path. Below him, the jagged rock face drops away into a deep abyss. He grits his teeth and spits a mouthful of blood onto the stones. As death approaches, our protagonist looks up through the floating debris with a bloodied face. He clutches his chest with a bandaged hand, realizing his lifelong pursuit was futile, and his blood begins to soak through the wrappings as regret sets in. He kneels on the precipice and leans against his blade, lamenting a life spent entirely obsessed with the sword. The red-haired man stares at the ground, mourning the ordinary life he never got to lead. His regret only earns a mocking look from the white-haired man, who delivers a brutal kick to his back that sends him crashing forward. The white-haired man pins him into the dirt with a heavy stomp, screaming that he should be grateful he wasn't exiled for his mother's role in ruining their clan. This is the home of the Szechuan family, a house known for mastery over poisons and hidden weapons. Despite their prestige, a massive shadow now looms over the mountain estate, as the buildings are consumed by fire and bodies fall from the cliffs. Standing at the center of the carnage is a mysterious figure, representing the new powers of Murim that have finally brought the Tang family to ruin. A battlefield lies silent, choked with the remains of the fallen. This is the work of Yun Jungyuk, the Heaven's Brilliance Demon Lord, who holds dominion over the 9 sects. He walks through the carnage he created, destroying anyone who refuses his proposals. When he takes an interest in a woman, he forces her into a marriage. A spear rises in defiance, but Yun Jungyuk ignites his power to erase any opposition that ignores his demands. Yun Jungyuk resolves to take what he wants by force, turning his fixation toward the Szechuan Tang family. He targets the poison phoenix, Tang Jihye. As the Heaven's Brilliance Demon Lord moves to seize her, the Szechuan Tang family strikes back with a powerful palm thrust, throwing a heavy punch that secures their victory. The Szechuan Tang family exhausted every resource they had, leaving only a field of fire and corpses. Their legacy ends as the blonde man falls with multiple blades driven through his back. A crow caws over the ruins while feathers drift down toward a different kind of cruelty. A heavy fist slams into the red-haired man's face, and the white-haired man mocks him for collapsing, while their business has only just begun. He dismisses the man's defiant glare with a heavy kick, telling him to blame his own mother for his misfortune. For our boy, being beaten into the dirt is just another part of his daily life. As he walks home alone under the moonlight, he reflects on the burden he carries. His mother, Tang Jihye, once attracted the attention of a demon lord and ruined the clan, leaving her son to face the family's resentment. He opens the door to their home, where Jihye is waiting and asks why he is so late. The moment she catches sight of him, her expression shifts to horror. She rushes across the room, demanding to know what happened to his face. Our boy tries to laugh it off as nothing, but the lie is cut short when he violently coughs up a spray of blood. Jihye grabs his hands and begs for the truth, accusing the other children of bullying him, but he insists he simply fell while playing. She weeps as she touches his bruised skin, terrified he will be permanently scarred, while he quietly promises to be more careful. Our protagonist holds Tang Jihye's hands, telling her she doesn't need to worry about his injuries, before he turns to leave her standing alone in the hallway. He brushes off her question about dinner by claiming he just needs to sleep. Our boy lies curled up on his bed in the dark. As he stares into the shadows, he knows their situation isn't his mother's fault, but he understands that complaining only leads to more retaliation. The shadows of his bullies loom over him, as he remembers the deceased father lying dead next to a cup of poison. Alone in the dark, our boy collapses under the weight of his reality, certain that leaving the Tang family would only leave him and his mother defenseless. He weeps in the shadows, wondering if his father's presence could have changed their fate. Life at the Tang family estate is a nightmare hidden behind grand walls. The white-haired bully and his crew stand over their victim, mocking him for exaggerating his pain. He grabs our MC by the hair, sneering that the torment is only just beginning before delivering a brutal kick. As the relentless beating continues, our boy wonders if this misery is all his life will ever be. Tang Jonggil finally calls for an end to the physical beating, but any hope for mercy vanishes as she jumps into the group with a twisted cheer, eager to start a new game with her favorite target. Drawing a single needle dripping with toxic green liquid, she explains that they must test the poisons intended for the upcoming clan leader competition. Tang Jonggil pins Yeonmyeong to the dirt, using his weight to ensure the terrified boy cannot move. He warns that a stray needle could leave him crippled, while Yeonmyeong promises to provide an antidote once she confirms the poison's potency. She grins with manic intent and drives the needle down, commanding Yeonmyeong to survive as the toxin pierces his arm and dark veins surge across his skin. Yeonmyeong screams in agony as the poison takes effect, his bloodshot eye reflecting Tan Yeongryang's sadistic smile as she watches his skin react. He collapses onto the cracked earth, rain washing over him while he struggles to find the strength to continue. His gaze turns hollow as he considers giving up to end the misery, but a vision of Tang Jihae's warm smile reminds him that his mother has no one else to protect her. Yeonmyeong grits his teeth in frustration, cursing the physical weakness that has always held him back. He recalls the bullies who beat him without mercy and clenches his fists in the mud with a vow to become strong enough to shield his mother and himself. Standing in the pouring rain, Yeonmyeong screams his desperation to the sky, begging for the chance to live a normal life. As he collapses, a massive pillar of light strikes the ground inches from his body. A spiritual sword stands embedded in the earth, a ribbon wrapped tightly around its hilt. Yeonmyeong stares at the weapon in shock, certain it wasn't there just a moment ago. Yeonmyeong looks up at a massive glowing blade embedded in the earth, certain he has never encountered this weapon before. Despite the mystery, he reaches out to grip the hilt, finding the metal feels strangely natural in his palm. A shock of realization strikes him that this sword belonged to him in another life. He stands frozen as memories flood his mind. A vision of a master swordsman appears, a warrior who spent a century honing his craft until a blue aura swirled around him. The muscular man glares forward with an eye glowing purple, declaring he has finally reached the pinnacle of his path. With a violent swing, the muscular man unleashes the first movement of a devastating sword form, following through with the strike he calls the sword's beginning, sending glowing white energy expanding outward. The muscular man unleashes a massive eruption of white energy, declaring the truth of his sword path. He stands stoically behind a blinding pillar of light that cleaves through the surrounding darkness. The strike impacts with enough force to shatter the earth, sending shockwaves and debris high into the air. As the dust settles, he remains resolute with his blade drawn, having finally executed his ultimate technique. Surrounded by rocks floating in the wake of his power, he explains that every step he took was for the sake of this one goal. A massive glowing fissure remains behind, carved deep into the rocky landscape. The world lies in ruins with the very earth shattered into floating fragments, a destruction left behind by the peak of martial arts. The muscular man, a scarred warrior who reached the pinnacle of his craft, stands amidst this debris and wonders how many lives he took to reach the end. His sword pulses with a dying glow, but blood drips from his mouth as he admits his path was futile. He collapses against the stone, realizing that even mastering the ultimate secrets of the blade cannot stop his own death. Overwhelmed by the weight of his choices, he bows his head and lets his hand fall limp as his life finally vanishes. Yeonmyeong grips a blade of light as the muscular man manifests behind him. He once wished for a normal life if given a second chance, but as he clenches the hilt, the energy radiating from the steel confirms he has remembered everything. The identities of the muscular man and Yeonmyeong begin to merge, their eyes igniting with the same spectral fire. He accepts his dual existence as both the muscular man and Yeonmyeong. The muscular man stands fully realized in a brilliant blue aura, wielding a massive sword that dwarfs Yeonmyeong's current form. He glares forward, his gaze burning with the power of a man who has reclaimed his peak. The muscular man stands within a towering pillar of light, his massive sword held ready. He plants his feet firmly as the light pours down around him. His scarred, bandaged hand reaches into the void, and Yeonmyeong thrusts his own arm forward to meet it, merging their forms in a flash of blue energy. As he declares, a new beginning. Yeonmyoung stands centered within a surging pillar of blue energy, his silhouette engulfed by the light as a voice commands him to live a normal life. The morning dew settles as the sun rises over the family estate. Tang Jihye calls after Yeonmyoung, asking how he can leave while still recovering from his wounds. He tells her not to worry, assuring her that he will remain safe as she watches him in surprise. He flashes a smile over his shoulder and promises to return as he heads down the dirt path. A massive tree marks the meeting spot where white-haired bully questions whether Yeonmyoung has finally decided to hide. Tang Jong-gil points out the severity of their last assault, noting that Yeonmyoung might only appear to keep his mother from seeing his injuries. A sharp grin spreads across white-haired bully's face as he acknowledges Yeonmyoung's resilience, declaring his intent to beat him even more thoroughly if he shows his face. He begins to plot their public mockery if Yeonmyoung fails to appear, but Tang Jong-gil spots a figure in the distance. High above the group, figure in tree perched on a branch calls out that they have kept everyone waiting. Moon-chan drops from the branches to meet Tang Jong-gil, admitting he feared their target might have run off. Tang Yeongryung spots the newcomer and waves him over, calling out for Yeonmyoung to hurry up. Yeonmyoung approaches with a focused expression, holding his ground as Moon-chan lands heavily right in front of him. Moon-chan addresses the girl first, mocking the effort it must have taken to bring the boy here, but his smirk fades into confusion when he notices Yeonmyoung is unharmed. Yeonmyoung remains calm, telling Moon-chan that it would take much more than their petty games to actually cause him pain. Moon-chan scratches his head in disbelief, laughing off the idea that the same boy who was screaming in agony just yesterday could suddenly act so tough. Moon-chan watches with a smirk as Tang Jong-gil steps forward, cracking his knuckles to signal the start of another beating. The bullies falter when Yeonmyoung calls them both by their full names, his calm tone breaking their expectations. Tang Yeongryum claps her hands and laughs, mocking Yeonmyoung for finding his voice, before her expression twists into a sadistic grin as she questions if he is ready to die. The two loom over him while debating if they should double his dose of poison today, while Moon-chan watches for the boy's reaction. Enraged that Yeonmyoung is ignoring him, Jong-gil demands his attention and launches a punch directly at the boy's head. Tang Jong-gil realizes he's made a mistake and throws his hands up in terror, his eyes widening as he braces for the impact. Yeonmyoung launches a blistering counterattack, his gaze sharp with intent as he cuts through the air. The strike slams into Jong-gil's face with enough force to crater the earth beneath him. Tang Yeongryung and the gray-haired bully gape at the scene in disbelief, watching as Yeonmyoung stands over the unconscious body of their leader while they struggle to understand how the fight ended in a single hit. Panic takes hold as the remaining bullies stumble back, unable to reconcile the master before them with the untrained boy they expected to find. Tang Yeongryung stands frozen in terror as Yeonmyoung declares that he is just as capable as his attackers. Yeonmyoung fixes them with a hard glare and brings up their plans to enter the clan leader competition. As he walks through the grass toward the retreating bullies, he mocks the idea of them competing with such pathetic skills. Tang Moon-chan breaks into a sweat, unable to believe this is the same person they knew yesterday. He forces himself to step forward, desperately telling himself that their friend was only caught off guard. He bursts into a sprint, fueled by the years he spent training for the upcoming tournament. Moon-chan leaps into the air and brings his blade down in a heavy strike, while Yeonmyoung remains perfectly still. Yeonmyoung catches the incoming wrist with a single hand, his eye glowing with a murderous light. Tang Moon-chan freezes in mid-air as he realizes his opponents are on an entirely different level, just before Yeonmyoung seizes him and slams him into the dirt with enough power to shatter the ground. Standing over his fallen opponent, Yeonmyoung declares that the race for clan leader is already over. Two figures stand before the hidden poison hall, which originally served as the clan leader's residence and the seat of power. Since the leadership has remained vacant, the elders have converted the grand space into their own council chamber. The white-bearded elder opens the session, stating that the list of candidates for the young clan leader competition is almost complete. He moves to decide the fate of Yeonmyoung, the son of the Poison Phoenix, noting the boy has not yet declared his participation. Outside, Yeonmyoung holds the defeated Tang Jong-gil by the hair as he focuses his attention on the hall. A concerned clan member questions the decision to cast him aside, reminding the group that Yeonmyoung is the son of their previous leader. He warns that excluding the boy would damage the legitimacy of the upcoming competition, as Yeonmyoung continues dragging his captive toward the hall. An elder dismisses the concern, claiming that allowing an unskilled fighter to participate only lowers the clan's standards. He settles the matter by declaring the former leader's bloodline a burden to the family. The heavy doors of the hall fly open as Yeonmyoung interrupts the meeting. leaving the blue-haired and black-capped clan members stunned by the intrusion. Yeonmyeong stands in the entrance radiating blue energy, forcing the blue-haired clan member to gasp his name in terror. The white-bearded elder demands to know if Yeonmyeong realizes the gravity of his actions. Yeonmyeong looks back with indifference, confirming he knows exactly what he's doing. Silence falls over the assembly hall as the clan sees Yeonmyeong standing at the edge of the pit, casually dangling a broken Tang Yeongryong by her hair. The white-bearded elder gasps in shock as Yeonmyeong looms over his captive. Tang Yeongryong is barely recognizable, her face heavily bruised and one eye swollen shut from the beating. As the white-bearded elder stares in shock, Yeonmyeong explains that he has spent his life being suppressed and forced to endure the Tang family's cruelty. Clan members leap from their seats in a rage, screaming that harming a competitor is a capital crime. But Yeonmyeong doesn't flinch, declaring that his days of enduring are over. Yeonmyeong stands his ground before the elders, asking if there is any rule against participants fighting one another, which shocks the surrounding clan members. The white-bearded elder demands to know if he is serious about entering the young clan leader competition. Yeonmyeong meets his gaze and asks if his recent actions haven't made his point clear. He points to the open ground outside where Tang Jeong-gil lies beaten alongside the unconscious Tang Moonchan, claiming he only followed the family code of returning any grievance tenfold. The entire hall falls into a stunned silence as the weight of his retaliation sinks in. The elder clenches his fist in frustration, forced to acknowledge that Yeonmyeong has proven his strength. Angry protests erupt from the sidelines as the clan members realize he used the competition rules to shield himself from the consequences of his revenge. The white-bearded elder raises his hand to silence the protesting crowd, commanding them to let Yeonmyeong enter the competition. The clan members stare in shock at the sudden decree, but the elder stands his ground with a menacing pressure, demanding to know why they would block a qualified candidate who shows such confidence. He glares down at Yeonmyeong, issuing a cold ultimatum that the boy will pay for his actions today, if he fails to become the young clan leader. As the sun sets over the estate, Tang Ji-hae questions her son's choices, her hands clasped in dread as she asks why he would enter such a dangerous struggle for power. Yeonmyeong stands before his mother, insisting that his recent actions were a necessity. Tang Ji-hae watches him closely, noting that his decisive tone carries the weight of a serious commitment. He reflects on his own name, a title given with the sole purpose of surviving against all odds. Reaching out to hold his arm, Tang Ji-hae admits she still saw him as a child, but now senses the presence of a great man, choosing to ignore the mystery of how he overpowered his peers. She looks him in the eye to ask if he is truly ready for the upcoming young clan leader competition. Yeonmyeong crosses his arms with a confident smile, reminding her that he is the proud son of the Poison Phoenix. The declaration hits home and tears well up in Ji-hae's eyes as she looks at her son. She pulls him into a tight embrace, finally acknowledging how much he has grown. Wrapped in his mother's warmth, Yeonmyeong finds the resolve to protect the quiet life he finally possesses. He recognizes the enemies waiting to disrupt his peace and makes a silent vow to destroy every one of them. 1 month later, Tang Jo-kwi watches the boy's lack of preparation with concern as the young clan leader competition. Tang Ji-hae dismisses her brother's worry, insisting that her son never moves without a purpose. Tang Jo-kwi acknowledges the boy's unusual composure during his past fights, but Ji-hae only offers her gratitude for the family's protection, while he continues to question her lack of anxiety. He prioritizes the healthy meals prepared by his mother and consistent sleep, using internal cultivation to mend his damaged chi pathways. He decides that honing his combat skills is unnecessary. At this stage, having awakened the memories of his past life as a legendary swordmaster, he understands that technical mastery can be reclaimed whenever he chooses. Instead, he focuses his intent on his physical form, pressing his hand against the floor as he realizes he must first fortify the frame that will house his power. Since he is only 12, his meridians are still clear of impurities, and he performs a fluid flip to test the growing harmony within himself. The day of the competition arrives, and Yeonmyeong bows to his mother as he prepares to leave. Tang Ji-hae watches him with a gentle gaze, telling her son to stay safe on the journey ahead. Tang Jo-kwi offers his own farewell to Ji-hae before leading Yeonmyeong down the dirt path toward the trials. Ji-hae remains behind, watching her son disappear into the distance while thinking of Longryang. She smiles with pride, wishing his father could see the man their son has become. The sun climbs high over Dark King Hall. As the competition begins, a crowd gathers in the Dark King Hall courtyard for the upcoming competition. Yun waits by a plate of steaming white pills, wondering if he arrived too early. He sits on the steps and begins eating the medicine, noting the Dark King clan leader is busy. A group of participants arrives and begins whispering, identifying him as the son of the Poison Phoenix who supposedly defeated Moonchan. They mock him, claiming he never learned martial arts and that his presence proves the competition standards have dropped. As the headband participant suggests, they need to teach him a lesson. Yun flicks a pill into his face. The boy collapses backward, falling unconscious and foaming at the mouth as the angry participant realizes Yun just used the medicine as a hidden weapon. The marked participant freezes as he realizes the projectile wasn't a hidden weapon at all. It's nothing more than a half-eaten rice cake, and the power behind the toss leaves him stunned. Tang Jonggil clenches his fist in a rage, but Yun just notes how much larger this group is compared to Moonchan's small circle. He approaches the crowd calmly, telling them it's time they experience the same defeat firsthand. Yun brings his hands together with a menacing smile, reminding them that Moonchan refused to run even with a crippled arm. He stares down the sweating group, asking if they have any intention of running away. Tang Jonggil desperately orders his men to attack, but Yun blurs past the swarm with blinding speed. He delivers a brutal strike directly to Tang Jonggil's face, driving him back with the impact. A sudden flash of light and a heavy impact knock the teenager backward, leaving him to wonder if a mere participant could truly be responsible for such force. He sprints toward the source of the blast, his eyes widening in shock as he demands to know what caused the commotion. He looks down at the ground in confusion, while a defeated bully groans at his feet, only to find Yun perched atop a pile of unconscious bodies. Yun casually snacks on a treat and greets the newcomer, admitting he was growing bored while waiting for him to arrive. Yun smiles cheerfully at the newcomer, who frantically waves his hands to explain that the others started the fight before facepalming and begging for mercy. Nearby, clan members report the high number of pre-competition injuries to Grand Elder Tang Seokjung, who strokes his beard as they argue that such a violent candidate would make a disastrous leader. While the crowd gathers in the courtyard of the general office, the Grand Elder decides to change the competition rules on the spot. The purple-haired girl asks how the trials are conducted, and the pink-haired girl describes the years of training and duels that await them. When the purple-haired girl realizes she has no idea who she's talking to, the pink-haired girl boasts about getting insider tips from her father in the general office, just as an elder commands the crowd to be silent. Tang Jokui steps forward as the competition's overseer, commanding the attention of every trainee present. The crowd responds with a roar, recognizing him as the youngest leader to ever hold such authority. He details a 4-year path to the top, starting with a year of solitary drills and throwing techniques and weapon mastery, followed by 2 years of specialized training in lethal toxins. Once their skills are honed, Jokui announces the start of the main event. The participants listen as the duel format is revealed, but Grand Elder Tang Seokjung delivers the final, lethal twist. The matches will be fought under the rules of the goo poison ritual. The announcement sends a wave of horror through the ranks as the trainees realize the true cost of the competition. The trainees are struck with dread as they process the announcement of a goo poison match. It's a savage refinement method where venomous creatures are trapped in a jar to kill one another, a brutal concept now applied to this competition, where only one survivor can remain. Grand Elder Tang Seokjung explains that while they originally planned for standard duels, recent events forced a change in format, causing Tang Jokui to rub his face in frustration. Those dropouts are the direct result of Yun's earlier work, as he sits satisfied atop the pile of bullies he already dismantled. Even as vengeful shadows loom behind him, Yun remains indifferent to the hostility, while the rest of the participants turn their furious blame toward him as the cause of this deadly trial. Grand Elder Tang Seokjung addresses the gathered crowd, declaring that the position of young clan leader is the very future of the Tang family. He warns that this is no mere sparring match, but a sacred ceremony where they must risk their lives to transcend their limits. As the participants' blood begins to boil, the elder commands them to fight and conquer, promising the victor total control over the Sichuan Tang family. Tang Jonggil stands among the competitors, listening as the elder begins to reveal the brutal reality of the goo poison trial. Tang Moonchan and Tang Young Groyan steel themselves for the coming slaughter, while Tang Sacheon and Tang Gyuklin prepare to face the life-or-death selection process. Amidst the tension, Yun stands perfectly still. As his name is called, the Grand Elder delivers the final verdict. Out of everyone present, only a single survivor will walk away with the title. Instead of showing fear, Yeonmyeong simply smiles, finding the challenge of being the sole survivor easy. Since all provided panels are listed in the filler panels and contain only promotional or credit-related information, there is no story content to narrate according to the established rules. Narration is only generated for non-filler panels that advance the plot, reveal character, or raise stakes. At the Dark Moon Sword Sect's main camp, a late-night meeting is called to order. The scarred sect member addresses the gathered group, warning them to stay alert regarding the Tang family's recent schemes. Silhouetted members ask if the news concerns the competition for the next clan leader, noting that their spies confirmed the event was declared only days ago. The scarred sect member confirms that the family's potential heirs have already departed by carriage, though he reminds the group that their own leader could wipe the Tangs out whenever he chooses. Yu Giljin is sparing the family for now because they still serve a purpose in his plans. The elder of the Dark Moon Sword Sect identifies the Tang children as the family's only hope for the future. Red-streaked woman agrees, noting that any failure here would cripple the Tang family forever. Even with the Tangs in decline, bandaged sect member remains cautious of their remaining power and asks for the timing of their strike. The elder delivers a surprising verdict, ordering the group to do nothing for the time being. Red-streaked woman is momentarily stunned. She proposes waiting until the climax of the competition to slaughter every nurtured child at once, ensuring the Tang family suffers the greatest possible despair. The sect member agrees that their strategy will deliver a fatal blow. Mekinhu and his companion compare the target's potential to the Jigal and Moyong families, and he rests his hands on his weapon as he decides to track the carriage and wait 4 years before striking. While an agent watches the trainees pass, and Mekinhu explains that he has planted a seed within the Tang family to eventually seize total control. The trainees reach the competition venue and approach a distant figure as the trainee notes that the schedule remains unchanged despite the new rules. The instructor begins by laying out the ground rules for the competition, explaining that names are now irrelevant and they will only be identified by their assigned numbers. As Tang Ijan, Tang Yori, and Tang Mirio look around, Yori realizes their group is incomplete. Standing alone in the shadows, our protagonist remains distracted as the instructor calls out for number 28. He quickly turns back to offer an apology, but as the instructor snaps at him to stay focused, our MC wonders if the man leading them is even aware of their surroundings. As he catches up with the group, he remains certain that a hidden presence is tailing them through the woods, realizing they are being followed by someone who isn't an ally. They eventually reach a massive cliff face that seems like a dead end, leaving the trainees questioning if they have arrived at the right location. Their confusion turns to shock when a voice calls out from the stone itself, demanding the group provide a password. The black-capped instructor shouts a coded phrase at the cliffside, triggering a surge of blue energy as the mountain wall responds. The trainees watch as the solid rock face begins to split open before them. A folding fan snaps open against the glowing light. Jegul Changshin steps through the portal to welcome the group, identifying himself as their guide for the coming competition. He belongs to a family of formation masters that was nearly extinguished during a brutal invasion by the Heaven's Brilliance Demon Lord. The surroundings shift into a dark forest while he confirms that his family now serves as the barrier, keeping all external threats away from the trial. Jegul Changshin leads the trainees along a glowing path, explaining how his family uses complex formations to assist the proceedings. Tang Ijan stares at the illusionary surroundings, unable to distinguish the season or the space around them. While Changshin continues his lecture, Tang Mirio notices Tang Yeonmyeong staring blankly into the distance, showing no interest in the presentation. She recalls him being just as detached in the carriage when their driver suggested they all get to know one another. Tang Yori had been the first to approach him, introducing herself and admitting that his reputation from the competition preceded him. Tang Ijan joined the conversation as they traveled, eager to meet the person who had famously defeated Tang Yeongryong. Tang Yori warns Tang Yeonmyeong about the political fallout of his actions, reminding him that his opponent's great-grandfather is a powerful elder. She admits the shift to a goo poison match was shocking, but tries to stay focused on the competition. Tang Mirio isn't interested in being reasonable, demanding a confrontation while Tang Ijan watches nervously. Mirio's anger boils over at Yeonmyeong's blank stare, and his dismissive scoff sends her into a rage. She continues to glare at him as they walk through the grounds, vowing to hold him accountable for any further mistakes, until she accidentally bumps into Yori. Mirio snaps at the group for stopping suddenly, only for Ijan to point out that Instructor Jegul has vanished without a trace. Panic sets in as Tang Ijan and Tang Yori realize their instructor has vanished into thin air. Tang Mirio fears they'll be trapped in a spatial rift forever. doubting that Jaegal could have made a mistake. While the others spiral, Tang Yunmyung turns and walks away, ignoring Mirio's desperate questions about how they will escape. Yuri suggests waiting for a rescue that might never come while Mirio watches Yunmyung move with purpose. He disappears into the misty woods, his calm behavior leaving Mirio baffled. Outside the chaos, Jegal Changshin stalks through the fog, confident that the trainees are helpless inside his 7 locks phantom dome. He considers the situation with a calculating gaze, reflecting on the pettiness of the Tang family elders. They offered to double the support for his family on one condition. Jegal must use this test to eliminate Yunmyung. Jegal Changshin considers the promise made by the Tang family elder a deal too lucrative for his family to ignore. He reasons that his clan stands to gain everything from this competition, but his focus shifts when he senses a strange issue within his own formation. A jagged blue rift suddenly tears through the phantom mist, revealing Tang Yunmyang and the trainees standing right behind him. Jegal screams in terror as his trap fails. He stammers in disbelief, while Yunmyang steps through the breach, asking the instructor why he intended to leave them behind. Jegal tries to hide his trembling with a weak excuse about making a mistake, but Yunmyang remains composed, warning him to be more careful. Jegal watches the group with suspicion, unable to understand how Yunmyang reached his location through a flawless formation. When Tang Yori asks how he managed the feat, Yunmyang explains that he simply cut the formation open. Tang Mirio snaps at the group, ordering them to stop worrying and follow Jegal Changshin, while they still have the chance. Her command is cut short when Jegal's foot blurs mid-step, and he vanishes again, leaving Mirio stunned while Tang Yunmyang watches with an amused smile. Jegal Changshin retreats through the formation, cursing the humiliation of being forced to run. He is haunted by the memory of Yunmyang's sharp eyes, realizing the boy saw through his tricks instantly. Fear drives him faster as he questions how a 12-year-old could possess such a terrifying spirit, until he finally reaches a glowing blue portal that leads to the training grounds. Jegal Changshin sprints through the portal energy, gasping for air as he pushes his body to the limit. He eventually collapses onto the forest floor, hands and knees hitting the dirt while he struggles to recover. A sudden shout of his title breaks the silence, making Jegal jerk his head around. He finds warrior Mojiha standing nearby, and though Jegal tries to mask his ragged state, Mojiha immediately points out how unwell he looks. When the warrior asks for an explanation, Jegal forces himself to stay calm to ensure the man doesn't suspect the truth. Mojiha delivers the news that Group 7 is no longer participating in the competition, leaving Jegal demanding to know why. Warrior Mojiha reports that the participants have failed to arrive, suggesting they may have fallen victim to bandits or wild beasts. Jegal Changshin feigns regret and proposes they move on without the missing group, but he freezes as a sharp crack echoes behind him. Mojiha shifts into a combat stance while Jegal breaks into a sweat, realizing his formation is compromised. As Mojiha moves to investigate a glowing fracture in the air, Jegal frantically tries to wave him off. A blade pierces through the barrier and shatters it, the resulting blast of energy throwing Jegal backward. He stares at the floating shards of his broken defense in disbelief, watching as Yun Jungyuk steps through the ruined portal, having dismantled the Jegal family's supreme 7 locks formation, with ease. Yun Jungyuk steps through the wreckage of the shattered barrier, his blade drawn in a confident smirk. Jegal Changshin and warrior Mojiha watch in horror as their defenses disintegrate around them. Yun Jungyuk breaks into a sinister grin and voices his relief that the barrier is finally gone. Standing amidst the glass-like fragments with his eyes glowing red and shadowy figures looming behind him, he mockingly asks how they have been, claiming he was worried about them. The story begins. The purple-haired girl stands frozen, struggling to process the overwhelming skill used to save them. He turns back to explain that he only forced a temporary gap and urges them to flee, asking if they belong to the 7th group just as Jegal Changshin and warrior Mojiha arrive. And warrior Mojiha admits he feared the red-haired Tang youth had already been ambushed. The Tang youth maintains a smug expression, claiming the group only found the entrance because Changshin marked the path for them. While the girls whisper among themselves about the lie, Changshin watches them, his suspicion growing as he decides to stay quiet for now. Forcing an awkward laugh, Changshin hides behind his fan and hurries away to inspect the damaged formation. Tang Wanjin welcomes the participants to the training grounds, apologizing for the lack of a proper escort. He identifies himself as their instructor and a member of the Bonghui Brigade. The name sends a shock through the crowd, as the brigade was an elite force that supposedly vanished years ago alongside the former clan leader. These Bongui Brigade members now stand watch over the area, each one a warrior rumored to possess the strength of a great leader. A Tang youth casually mentions their history with the Poison Phoenix before asking why the brigade is no longer part of the family, leaving the girl beside him in disbelief at his ignorance. Tang Wanjin recounts the Bongui Brigade's history, detailing their disastrous defeat against the Heaven's Brilliance Demon Lord, while attempting to protect their young leader. Stepping forward with a heavy weight on his shoulders, he brands the entire brigade as mere sinners for failing their master. The pink-haired glasses girl watches from the shadows as the brown-haired girl questions that grim label, but the instructor quickly pivots to the competition rules. He explains that the first year consists of autonomous practice, where martial arts teachings are granted based on performance. This prompts the pink-haired glasses girl to ask about the Tang family's lost legendary technique, wondering if the 10,000 Heavenly Flower Rain is among the rewards they can earn. Tang Wanjin reveals that the legendary 10,000 Heavenly Flower Rain technique is the ultimate prize for whoever becomes the young clan leader, explaining that while the art remains incomplete, its core essence has been preserved by the clan elders. Our protagonist recognizes the technique as a storm of hidden weapons and analyzes his own palm, wondering if he can mimic the principles through his existing knowledge of sword control. Tang Wanjin warns that the elders will grant the technique's secrets piece by piece, though he doubts if any of them can truly master it. He scoffs at the idea of comfort, declaring that they must be entirely self-sufficient within the forest. With the instructors standing firm, the trainees are forced to trudge into the woods to begin their harsh survival training. Tang Wanjin pauses in shock as the trainees casually complain about the lack of comfortable beds and proper nutrition. He and the other instructors loom over the group, demanding to know where they get the nerve to speak so freely. Despite his anger, Tang Wanjin recalls Jaegul Changshin's barrier being shattered and decides to verify the boy's actual skill. While the girls vent their frustration by pulling at Tang Ijan's face for provoking the instructors, he warns the red-haired youth that failure will come with a heavy price, but the boy accepts the challenge without hesitation. Moving to a cliffside under the night sky, Tang Wanjin lays out the simple terms of the trial. The team members will surround the target and launch a coordinated barrage of hidden weapons. Tang Wanjin lays out the final condition of the trial, declaring the test will only be complete if our guy defends against every strike without moving more than 5 steps. Our guy calmly ties a thick blindfold over his eyes, accepting the handicap, as Wanjin confirms the assault begins the moment his vision is gone. High above the clearing, a sect instructor crouches on a vantage point and readies a handful of daggers. The observing trainees grow anxious during the long delay, questioning if such a feat is even possible. One girl realizes the instructors are intentionally stalling to let the pressure break our guy's focus. Multiple instructors suddenly leap from their hiding spots and hurl their weapons with blinding speed. A massive barrage of glowing steel slices through the air, converging on our guy from every direction. A massive barrage of heavy blades and hidden projectiles tears through the air, as an instructor leaps from the shadows to add another volley to the storm. Kunai, shuriken, and coins rain down in a dense cloud, converging directly on the head of the blindfolded youth. He remains perfectly still, facing the lethal storm without flinching. As the steel whistles around him, he calmly tracks the number of incoming strikes, counting exactly 167 weapons. He catches a heavy blade by its hilt as his hand flares with blue energy, utilizing the principle of attachment to prove that his martial arts go far deeper than mere technique. A barrage of hidden weapons cuts through the air. Testing the core principles of speed and weight, Yan Myung spins into a defensive stance, conjuring a blue vortex that channels the martial arts of ascension. The energy wave slams into the projectiles, knocking them off their trajectories. He maintains his fluid motion, keeping the protective aura active as he pivots. Relying on the enlightenment gained from his previous life, he easily sweeps the remaining steel aside. The blue energy erupts into a massive pillar, scattering every last weapon in all directions. The instructor and trainees look on in disbelief, stunned that a single movement could neutralize the entire assault. Tang Wanjin breaks into a sweat as he realizes our protagonist didn't repel the weapons, but actively drew them in. The other trainees watch in shock as Wanjin admits even he would have been forced to dodge that strike. Our protagonist holds his shattered blade and calmly asks for his result. A trainee looks up at the instructor to snap him out of his daze, finally getting Tang Wanjin's attention by shouting his name. Wanjin coughs into his fist to regain his composure. He grants the passing grade and sends our protagonist to the manor, privately labeling him a monster. One of his teammates points accusingly at our MC, asking if he plans to leave the group behind for the manor's comforts. Our MC gives her a flat look before breaking into a smug grin, taunting them about the high-quality food waiting for him at the manor. He stands with his hands on his hips and laughs, questioning if they will even get fed out in the forest. The rest of the team struggles to hold her back as she flies into a rage, while our MC continues to gloat about his upcoming feast. Warrior Mojiha watches the chaos, noting the battle is decided before the competition even begins. As our MC turns back to demand meat with every meal to fuel his growth, Mojiha watches him and sees the one who might finally revive the Sichuan Tang family. A wolf rips meat from a carcass. The wolves suddenly freeze, sensing a nearby threat, and snarl to protect their meal. One wolf is struck down instantly, leaving the others in shock. 3 trainees, the purple-haired trainee, the pink-bun trainee, and a brown-haired thrower, leap from the high ground to ambush the remaining wolf, while Mirio praises Ijeon for his mastery of toxins and his rainstorm technique as they roast meat over a campfire. Despite the meal, the 3 sit in silence, their faces reflecting the toll of the last 4 months. Their journey began in terror, fleeing from a bear on their very first day, which forced them into hiding where they survived on raw roots. The struggle only eased when Ijeon caught a rabbit, a victory that brought them to tears before resting by the flames. Ijeon wonders if Yunmyung is living a more comfortable life, insisting that he is likely just loafing around while they do all the work. She smugly predicts that he will finally get what he deserves the moment he sets foot in the manor. While the brown-haired trainee wonders how strong the boy has become through secret training, purple-haired trainee suddenly realizes something is wrong. They turn to find their entire dinner has vanished from the fire, leaving the pink-bun trainee lying on her back, stuffed and satisfied. The 2 trainees draw their knives and loom over her with glowing eyes, their hunger replaced by a silent, murderous intent. An angry voice bellows an insult from a dark cave entrance. Below the peaks, the 7 Locks Phantom Dome Formation stronghold prepares for a late-night trial. In the courtyard, a group of trainees circles up while their instructor watches from the edge. The red-haired trainee stands ready, focusing on the threat ahead. A masked trainee draws a pair of throwing knives and drops into a combat stance. The instructor gives the command to begin the exercise, and 2 masked trainees immediately lunge forward. The red-haired trainee flips through the air, letting the attackers pass harmlessly beneath him to clear the opening strike. Our boy drops low to the ground as 2 masked trainees leap over him, twisting his body to evade a downward strike from a third attacker. He retaliates with a counterattack and strikes one man in the face before sending the rest of the group flying back. He lands gracefully and settles into a combat stance. His gaze sharpens as a barrage of throwing knives cuts through the air toward him. A masked trainee flinches in surprise, but the group immediately responds by launching a coordinated barrage of throwing knives. The red-haired trainee vaults high into the air to evade the steel, equipping spiked golden rings as he prepares to test a fresh technique. His eyes flare green as he crosses his arms to gather energy, a menacing grin spreading across his face while power whips around him. The trainees look up in dread as he descends like a meteor, enveloped in a blue aura while raining projectiles on the silhouettes below. They can only watch in shock as the attack spreads across the field and traps them where they stand. Spiked golden rings slice through the air, trailing blue energy as the masked trainees realize the weapons are moving on their own. One ring spins with lethal speed, blurring into a golden haze that makes its trajectory impossible for the targets to predict. A trainee takes a direct hit while his comrade flinches, and the projectiles accelerate until the panicked group can no longer track the movement. Our protagonist glares and commands his weapons to spin, unleashing a massive energy vortex that sweeps his opponents into the air. The black-capped instructor stares in shock, sweating as he realizes the red-haired trainee neutralized a group of trained members in a single heartbeat. The masked trainees look over their arms to find only shallow nicks, proving their opponent controlled a massive attack with surgical precision. When the black-capped instructor asks if the boy developed the skill himself, the red-haired trainee confirms it with a calm nod. The red-haired trainee names his creation the Whirling Line Frenzy Dance, though the instructor notes the massive energy drain required for such a move. He presses for an answer on how a trainee could possibly sustain that power. Our protagonist explains his logic, noting that while piercing sky eyes were an option, he chose to focus on the current flow eyes despite the technique being incomplete. The instructor is stunned when our boy casually claims to have mastered it anyway. As a dragon visage manifests behind him, he reveals that he recognized the technique's roots in the ascendant martial arts. He demonstrates how the eyes reveal glowing trajectories, allowing him to strike any target with precision and minimal energy. The instructor admits he has stopped being surprised by such genius, acknowledging that our boy filled in the missing essence on his own, before deciding to share some news. He reveals that in 2 months, the rest of the team will arrive to face the same test. While they already possess the necessary skills, they chose to stay behind and polish their abilities further. Hearing of his teammates' dedication, our hero smiles at the news. The instructor asks our protagonist if he's curious about his teammates' progress, privately wondering if the boy actually worries about his friends. He grows uneasy, however, picturing those same teammates using a crude sketch of our hero for target practice. Our protagonist stares at the night sky, reflecting on a past life where his only human bond was with his master, the sword ghost. Now he realizes new connections are forming despite his history, and he finds himself wanting to see his friends again soon. Miles away, his teammates bicker over stolen rations and his eventual return. They began their training as mere novices, but they have since reached a level of power that dwarfs their former selves. One trainee smiles at the thought of finally meeting Yeon-myung again, while his teammate vows to split their opponent's head in half as the final member of the group maintains a dark, silent intensity. The black-capped instructor flinches while the crowd roars for the 7th team's victory, watching with dread as the 3 warriors emerge from a massive portal. They arrive at the grand estate and demand that Tang Yeon-myung come out to face them. The pink bun trainee and Tang Miryo scan the empty courtyard, unsettled by the lack of noise. Tang Miryo laughs, convinced the red-haired trainee has run away, while the pink bun trainee clenches her fist in frustration over the missed kill. Tang Miryo turns to address Tang Ijan's sudden silence. The girls freeze as the red-haired trainee explains he was simply waiting to surprise them, asking what exactly they intended to do to his head. He leans in with a dark smile, mockingly addressing the pink bun trainee as a cutie. In the quiet courtyard, Tang Miryo and the pink bun trainee freeze when they realize someone has caught them off guard. The red-haired trainee grips Tang Ijan by the shoulder, mockingly challenging the boy to prove his worth after half a year of practice. He offers to take the first move, forcing a terrified Ijan to scramble for excuses and claim they were only joking. Miryo breaks into a sweat, realizing that even with their senses sharpened by the forest, they never sensed his approach. As the red-haired trainee pulls his targets close, Miryo is left to face the massive gap in their power. Miryo notices how much our protagonist has changed, becoming flustered as she sees how much he's grown during their time in the forest. Our guy tells her not to feel discouraged by the gap between them, flashing a confident smile while claiming she only seems less impressive because he is standing right there. He pulls his friends into a rough huddle, leaving Miryo to realize that his arrogant personality remains exactly the same. Jeonju enters a dimly lit meeting hall where the elders wait, noting that it has been 6 months since his last appearance. Jeonju calls the meeting to order, demanding to know if any participants have shown potential. The orange-haired instructor identifies participant number 2 as a standout, noting her growth far outpaces the others. She observes that this trainee isn't driven by a simple will to survive, but rather a deep-seated hostility that fuels her every move. The purple-haired instructor interrupts with his own recommendation, pointing to participant number 10, who cleared the warrior's test in only a month. Jeonju remains visibly anxious despite these reports, questioning if there are any other candidates worth mentioning, as an instructor suggests participant 18. However, the instructor immediately dismisses the suggestion, claiming the trainee is unremarkable when compared to the power of participant 28. Jeonju sits paralyzed by nerves as a menacing shadow looms over him. He recalls the red-haired trainee shattering a formation and displaying martial skills that outclass even seasoned masters. A black-haired instructor notices his distress and asks if something is wrong. Jeonju flinches back to reality, demanding they exclude participant 28 from the discussion to focus on finding a puppet they can actually control. The gray-haired elder laughs awkwardly and waves off the topic, claiming his own group lacked any standout talent. Shifting the focus, the brown-haired elder suggests recruiting participant number 2 and using his nephew to secure her loyalty. The brown-haired elder targets participant number 2, planning to exploit her insecurities about her facial injury to manipulate her. He intends to secure her victory in the competition, and then tie her to the Jegal family through a marriage with his niece. This move would officially establish the Jegal family as the Tang family's primary external branch, granting them the authority to interfere in their internal affairs. Both elders agree, as the full plan is revealed. They funded this competition to increase their influence until they can eventually absorb the Tang family into their own house. With the meeting concluded, the brown-haired elder stands to leave, already viewing participant 28 as a candidate for recruitment through revenge. He plans to adopt the boy and offer him the position of the Jigal family's future leader. To ensure his loyalty, the brown-haired elder erupts into a fit of triumphant laughter over a double victory, while a clan member watches in confusion. Back in the courtyard, Tang Miryou and the pink bun trainee observe the training grounds where throwing knives strike the center of a wooden post with perfect accuracy. Miryou clenches her fist, motivated by the fact that their training has doubled since moving into the manor. She admits that the workload is exhausting, especially when the freezing cold of their cave training makes a real bed feel like a luxury. When the pink bun trainee asks about their teammates, Miryou mentions that Tang Ijian stormed off toward the lab in a rage. She worries about his temper, just as Ijian presents a bowl of his most potent poison to the red-haired trainee. The red-haired trainee immediately drinks the entire concoction, leaving Ijian screaming in horror at his teammates' reckless behavior. The red-haired trainee's cheeks puff out as he struggles to hold back a surge of nausea. Right before the red-haired trainee vomits a massive cloud of toxic green gas directly into his face, Tang Ijian writhes on the floor in agony while his teammate wipes his mouth, annoyed that he was being shaken so roughly. The red-haired trainee stands up completely unharmed, a green aura radiating from his body as he shrugs off the toxins. He flashes a smug smile and asks if the poison was just weaker than expected, leaving Tang Ijian in shock that a substance meant to melt a man's insides had no effect. The red-haired trainee looks down at Tang Ijian with a smug grin, mocking Tang Ijian's subpar skills as his opponent stares back in a mix of fury and shock. To drive the point home, the red-haired trainee casually drinks the remaining poison directly from the bowl. Tang Ijian slams his fist onto the table, demanding to know how his opponent survived. Until the red-haired trainee mentions the Tang family's core technique, poison refining madness. Mastery over toxins begins with a radical realization: a true master should control the poison within their own veins. The red-haired trainee smiles as he harnesses the toxins in his body, converting them directly into internal energy as if they were rare elixirs. While Tang Yijian grinds his teeth in frustration, the trainee knows this level of control is only possible through an understanding that those who treat poison as a mere weapon will never reach. However, his growth has hit a wall where weak poisons no longer provide the power he needs. As the shadows of the Tang clan elders loom, he calculates his next move, confident he can eliminate them at any time, but wary of the larger forces in play. He cannot guarantee a victory if the Black Death Alliance or the Heaven's Brilliance Demon Lord and young Junyuk decide to invade. Though he holds no personal grudge against the Black Death Alliance, their division of Sichuan City makes them an obstacle he must clear to achieve the ordinary life he desires. Our protagonist considers the leader of the Death Alliance a genius who has already dismantled 3 of the 9 factions. He knows that to survive against monsters like the Heaven's Brilliance Demon Lord or the pink-haired adversary, he must reclaim the power he held in his previous life. Watching Tang Ijian slump over his books, our protagonist wonders if Ijian could eventually produce the legendary 10 poisons of the Tang family. He asks for clarification on the term, prompting an irritated lecture from Ijian about his ignorance of his own clan's history. Ijian explains that while most of these ancestral formulas were lost over generations, even the 9th-ranked poison could bring a transcendent master to their knees. Since the remaining drafts are guarded by the clan elders, our protagonist realizes this is exactly the kind of power he needs to seize. Tang Ijian leans over his desk, explaining that the formulas for the legendary 10th poison have been lost to time. Our protagonist remains unimpressed, picking her ear as she notes that his current poisons no longer have any effect on her. In the present, the instructor suddenly clutches his throat as her voice warns that the 10th poison is a forbidden lethal draft. She strikes him with a brutal punch to the neck, channeling a surge of dark energy into the blow. As they shift stances, the instructor realizes he has been outmaneuvered, staring in terror while the dark power begins to creep over his skin. He coughs up a glowing, explosive substance, his body failing from the inside. The black-capped instructor coughs up a glowing, explosive substance as his body violently fails from the inside. Fiery energy erupts from within his chest, blasting his silhouette backward. His fist goes rigid as his physical form breaks down. Participant number 2 watches in shock, her eye widening at the result of her attack. She watches in silence as the instructor's hand crumbles into stone. Sweat beads on her face as she stands frozen while the rest of his body disintegrates. The instructor's body crumbles into ash, incinerated in a heartbeat by the lethal toxin. Participant number 2 watches from the shadows with a malicious grin, marveling at the lethality of the Tang family's 10 poisons gifted by her grandfather. She breaks into a manic laugh, her single visible eye glowing with intensity. A dark silhouette looms as she recalls the agony of a poisoned needle, and she pulls her hair back to expose her scarred face, promising to unleash her restrained rage on Yeonmyeong during the poison match. A full year has passed since Tang Yeonmyeong began training for the competition, a time spent refining his martial arts and closing the gaps in his technique to prepare for the real test. This role is only temporary for now, serving as a precursor to an official election that will take place during their 3rd year. The stakes are high, as these leaders will represent their teams in the Gu Poison match, a brutal, life-or-death confrontation, reserved for the strongest participants. While the pink-haired girl and purple-haired girl realize the match is a filter to ensure only the elite survive, the instructor calls for Tang Yeonmyeong. Chosen for his superior achievements, Tang Yeonmyeong remains stoic, as he is officially named the leader. The instructor announces that Tang Yeonmyeong is now more than just a leader, but a top contender for the position, though he clarifies the appointment is only temporary for now. While Tang Yeonmyeong processes the news, the instructor asks the other trainees for any objections and commands the boy to step forward. He reveals a small chest holding a radiant golden pill, catching Tang Yeonmyeong off guard. This is the Heavenly Heart Pill, a famed treasure of the Tang family brewed from century-old ginseng to boost internal energy based on the user's strength. The crowd watches in disbelief as a glowing pill is presented, questioning why such a treasure is being handed to Tang Yeonmyeong. The instructor explains that the pill is a privilege reserved for the new team leader, noting the clan's high expectations for the group. He singles out Yeonmyeong, promising a transformative experience upon taking the Heavenly Heart Pill, but Yeonmyeong interrupts to ask if there are other options. The instructors are left baffled when he asks for a different reward entirely. He bluntly rejects the elixir, claiming he needs something else, which sends his teammates into a state of shock. They react with exasperation, knowing the value of the item he is casually turning down. While one of the girls begs to take it in his place, the instructor tries to understand why anyone would refuse a boost to their internal energy. Yeonmyeong meets his gaze with cold determination, demanding the Tang family's 10 deadliest poisons instead. Tang Yeonmyeong stands before his teammates and explains that since the legendary poisons were unavailable, he took these tools instead, berating him for his choice, while the brown-haired girl tries to justify the decision by claiming he is strong enough without it. She suggests the elders will at least be pleased that the Heavenly Heart Pill was saved, but Yeonmyeong stuns the group by revealing he never actually returned it. A few hours earlier, the team was still finalizing their gear. Deep within the courtyard, the instructor meets Tang Yeonmyeong in the armory to deliver a shipment of prepared weapons. He questions if these items are a fair trade for the Heavenly Heart Pill. But Yeonmyeong only regrets that the poison provided isn't more lethal, prompting the instructor to note that he is the only student who would prefer venom over a legendary elixir. When asked if he requires anything else, Yeonmyeong insists the gear is sufficient for his needs. Before they part, the instructor stops him to ask what will become of the pill itself. Yeonmyeong suggests returning it to the Medicine King Hall, though he quickly admits to the confused instructor that he has a much more entertaining idea in mind. He reveals this gamble to his teammates, the pink-haired girl, the purple-haired girl, and the brown-haired girl, who react in shock as he explains that defeating him would allow them to elect a new leader and claim the pill. The instructor agrees that the pill is the perfect motivation for the family's future, while Tang Yeonmyeong invites his peers to challenge him for it. The other trainees scramble to gather their weapons, shouting threats as Yeonmyeong watches their desperation with a grin. He has no intention of losing, privately resolving to secure the leadership so he can provide heart pills for every member of the clan. A shout from outside interrupts his thoughts, and Yeonmyeong prepares to establish the hierarchy among his rivals. He walks out into the courtyard to meet the first wave of attackers. Summer passes as the challenges continue, followed by the arrival of autumn, and finally the winter snow before a new spring begins. Petals drift through the training courtyard, where the quiet is suddenly shattered. Tang Ejon is sent reeling through the air and slams into the dirt with a pained cry. Tang Yeonmyeong stands tall over his fallen opponent, mockingly asking if he's keeping track of his 173rd consecutive loss. Watching from the sidelines are two fellow trainees, the purple-haired girl and the pink-haired girl, who find Yeonmyeong's perfect composure and charm far more interesting than the combat. They both agree that the view alone makes the match worth watching. Yeonmyeong graciously extends a hand to the exhausted Ijeon, asking if he's finally ready to admit defeat. Tang Yeonmyeong makes his ambition clear, vowing to claim the title of young clan leader. His teammate looks on, unable to picture anyone else winning the upcoming trials. They seal the moment with a firm handshake as the trainee asks Yeonmyeong to remember his peers once he reaches the top. After observing their growth over the last year, the instructor formally appoints Yeonmyeong as the team leader. The time for practice has ended, with the instructor announcing that the lethal goo poison match begins tomorrow. Yeonmyeong accepts the order to make his final preparations, while others have paid for their failure with their lives. The instructor commends the 7th team, noting that they have all survived and achieved growth comparable to the elite Bongui Brigade. Tang Ijeon covers his mouth in relief, while Tang Yeonmyeong smiles at the praise. The mood shifts as the instructor issues a final warning regarding the upcoming goo poison match, catching Yeonmyeong off guard. He explains that while poison was previously banned in sparring, the rules for this match allow for the use of extreme, lethal toxins. The instructor challenges Yeonmyeong to use every deadly tool at his disposal, and our boy responds with a confident smirk. To prepare him, the instructor hands over a specialized box filled with the various poisons Yeonmyeong requested. The rest of the team looks on with visible nerves as Ijeon jokes about the deadly kit, while the instructor reminds them that a single drop from these vials is enough to kill. He continues the briefing by detailing the specific applications of ocular poison and 9 sickness powder, confident that the team is ready for the trial ahead. Tang Ijeon points forward as he demands a guarantee of victory. Tang Yeonmyeong holds out his fist to give his word, but as Ijeon grabs his arm, he suddenly strikes Yeonmyeong across the face. Wiping blood from his nose, Yeonmyeong vows to win, declaring that his teammates are the only ones who could have possibly harmed him before the competition is over. He bids them farewell and steps toward the portal, clutching a carved red vial as the long-awaited goo poison match begins. Nearby, participant number 2 prepares her grandfather's secret toxins, relying on a new ally to secure her own win. Standing before a glowing portal in the depths of a starry void, participant number 2 looks back with skepticism, questioning why the Jagal family would ever offer her their help. The brown-haired elder gestures toward the expanse, explaining that his family designed the very formations governing the goo poison arena. He proposes a deal, claiming it would be a simple matter to manipulate those formations and place her in a winning position. Participant number 2 demands to know what he expects in return for such a favor. The elder admits that the Jegal family has lost its strength and needs an alliance with the Tang family to survive without losing their sovereignty. Her gaze sharpens as she realizes his true intent is to use her as a political backer to interfere in Tang family affairs. To build trust, the elder opens his arms and invites her to name her price, offering to provide whatever she needs to secure the deal. Participant number 2 stares with a bloodshot, scarred eye, driven by 3 years of waiting to reclaim the life she lost. She smiles, eager to finally face her target. Tang Yeonggryung and Tang Jonggil lead the first 2 teams as the competition begins. Tang Gukrin leans a bloodied wooden bat against his shoulder, dismissing the Tang family's elite as nothing but talk. He steps toward a glowing portal in search of a genuine challenge while leaving a trail of broken bodies and discarded weapons in his wake. The roster fills out with Tang Hiran, while Tang Jia looks on in disgust and Tang Myungso marvels at the scene. Tang Yeonmyeong stands apart from the others, observing the landscape as the representative for Team 7. As the goo poison match begins, pink-haired ponytail girl shields her eyes and smiles at the sky, noting that the weather is right for a killing. Tang Yeonmyeong surveys her new surroundings with a curious gaze, standing on the edge of a high cliff as she realizes the goo poison match venue is far larger than she expected. While she considers how long it will take to find an opponent, an elder observing from the clouds identifies her as participant 28. He plots to eliminate her immediately to satisfy the Jegal family's demands, but his focus breaks when her behavior changes. Tang Yeonmyeong looks back over her shoulder and stares directly into his eyes, piercing the magical illusions and leaving the elder in shock. Her focus is quickly pulled away as an ominous rift tears through the sky above the forest. Tang Yeonmyeong senses a hostile presence and suspects the Jegal family is watching him from the shadows. While the black-capped instructor warns that outside interference is forbidden during the goo poison match, Tang Yeonmyeong remains skeptical. He knows they have been meddling since the tournament began and prepares to leap, daring them to try whatever they have planned. Tang Yeonmyeong dives from the cliff into the forest below, deciding to settle the score only after the match concludes. Back in the Jegal family formation room, the Jegal elder collapses against his table, trembling that his target spotted him through multiple magical barriers. The Jegal elder stands shaken, realizing Tang Yan-myung's swordsmanship is powerful enough to cut through the very essence of his formations. The brown-haired elder from the Jegal family breaks into a cold sweat as he realizes Tang Yan-myung's swordsmanship is far beyond what they can handle. He knows that if the boy survives and discovers their scheme, he will hunt them all down, making it vital to eliminate him immediately. Deep in the forest, the pink-haired ponytail girl clutches her bleeding arm, struggling to stay upright as her strength fades. She collapses into a state of panic, screaming that she isn't ready to die. She recalls her simple dream of supporting her family, remembering when her life was still safe and hopeful. She never wanted power and intended to forfeit her position to avoid any real conflict. But those plans were shattered when Tang Yan-myung appeared with a knife and a blood-stained smile. He tore through the crowd in a flurry of lethal strikes, killing everyone who had gathered. Covered in blood and trembling in the undergrowth, the disciple realizes that surrender was never an option, because her pursuer is only interested in the kill. As a heavy boot thuds onto the dirt nearby, she resolves to yield to anyone else, just to survive the night. She bolts through the forest, desperately hoping other group leaders are still alive so she can abandon the Tang family forever. But she freezes when Tang Yan-myung steps from the shadows to mock her. Tang Yan-myung looms over her with a blood-stained blade, laughing at how quickly her confidence vanished. He yanks her back by her hair, sneering at her weak internal energy, and dismissing her as just another failure. She breaks down into desperate sobs, begging for mercy and reminding him that they share the same family blood. Tang Yan-myung remains unmoved, meeting her plea with cold indifference. Tang Yan-myung looks down at his victim with a sadistic smile, disowning his ties to the Sichuan Tang family. He tightens his grip on his sword and decapitates the girl in one clean motion. Tang Yan-myung leaps through the forest to distance himself from the scene until he spots a cave that looks like a perfect hiding spot. He scans the clearing, satisfied that no one is around to track him, and retreats into the dark interior where his senses remain calm. Tang Yan-myung arrives at a secluded cave to begin his final preparations. He steps into the darkness, intent on ascending to the transcendent level immediately. Settling into a meditative stance, he confirms his body is now strong enough to endure the breakthrough. A blue aura flares as he focuses on the dual requirements of enlightenment and meridian expansion. He draws on his past life experiences and his steadily increased internal energy to trigger a massive surge. Tang Yan-myung grins as green energy erupts violently, the force shaking his entire frame. He finally shatters the barriers on his meridians to release the accumulated madness of his poison cultivation. Tang Yan-myung unleashes his internal energy with an explosive force that would normally cripple a martial artist. His joints shatter and reform in a grueling cycle of reconstruction, as he undergoes a total physical metamorphosis. Even as his skin cracks under the strain, Tang Yan-myung maintains a confident smirk, relying on the memories of his past life to navigate the process. His eyes flare with a blinding radiance before a pillar of green energy erupts through the forest canopy. Covered in sweat, Tang Yan-myung completes the rebirth, satisfied that his diligent meridian cleansing kept the transformation from turning fatal. Tang Yan-myung examines his hands, feeling the strength granted by his rebirth despite the stench of his current rags. He steps into a forest clearing to test his new limits against a massive rock face. Tang Yan-myung recalls the physical discipline he kept even before the goo poison match, noticing that while his body looks the same, the green energy and vapor swirling around his fingertips are heavy with power. With a sudden strike, he unleashes the built-up power, driving a shockwave into the solid stone that causes the entire cliffside to explode. He stands amidst the falling rubble, satisfied with how easily his internal energy now flows. Tang Yan-myung stands before the rocky cliffs, ready to finally begin his move. Elsewhere, the Grand Elder's favorite pupil, Tang Jukren, rests on a tree branch with a blood-stained blade while mocking his victim's lack of progress. Looking up at his executioner, the man realizes his luck has run out by crossing paths with such a high-ranking opponent. Jukren smiles down with a predatory look, his reputation for being a monster proving true. He lunges from the branch with a brutal strike, forcing the participant into a desperate failing block. The impact is devastating, leaving the man's vision fading as he realizes he won't survive this encounter. Slumped on the grass and clutching his mangled arm, his thoughts drift toward another person as the end nears. Tang Jukren looks down at his victim, wondering why a man on the brink of death is suddenly laughing. The participant admits he has no hidden power, only the realization that there are monsters in this world far more terrifying than the man standing over him. With a casual shrug, Ukraine reveals his true allegiance as a spy for the Black Death Alliance. The revelation leaves the participant frozen, and Ukraine flashes a jagged smile, noting that since his identity is out, he can't let the witness leave the clearing alive. Tang Gukrin stands over Jeonggil, revealing his true identity as Mak In-gok of the Great Darkness Silent Sword Sect, but his blade suddenly halts in midair as his entire body seizes. Jeonggil watches the interruption in silence while Gukrin strains against the paralysis, unable to move a single muscle, as Tang Yunmyung walks up behind a frozen attacker. He greets Jeonggil with a smile, asking if the man has recovered since their last fight, leaving Jeonggil speechless as he stares at the newcomer's identity. Under a full moon, a white-haired man outlines a plan for Ukraine to infiltrate the Sacheon Tang family as a spy. He instructs the young boy to play the part of an orphan, to secure an adoption, positioning him for an upcoming struggle for power among the family's descendants. The mission is clear. Gukrin must eliminate the other heirs to weaken the family, earning his own clan's recognition in exchange for the bloodshed. Back in the present, Gukrin collapses in agony, feeling as though his internal organs are melting away. As he watches Tang Yunmyung and Jeonggil walk away, he realizes this excruciating pain is the result of whatever Yunmyung did to him. Jeonggil asks for confirmation of Tang Yunmyung's name and receives a calm response. When Yunmyung threatens to repeat the brutal beating he gave him previously, Jeonggil finally accepts the truth of his identity. Tang Yunmyung questions the identity of their captive, confirming with a nervous Jeonggil that Gukrin really called himself Ganja. Tang Yunmyung retrieves a hidden needle from Gukrin's back, catching the small weapon as Jeonggil realizes Tang Yunmyung had secretly poisoned his target. Tang Yunmyung studies the needle while questioning the location of the other participants. Jeonggil suggests they should focus on detoxifying Gukrin to gather more information. On the ground, Ukraine eyes a nearby sword, plotting to strike the moment Tang Yunmyung lowers his guard to help, but Tang Yunmyung dismisses the need for a cure, already certain that a member of Hook Sarian has only one goal. Tang Yunmyung observes Gukrin, noting how much the man has changed since they last met. Gukrin awkwardly looks away, claiming his past actions were driven by his own resentment. Tang Yunmyung points out that if Ukraine still held on to that hate, he would already be dead, leaving the warrior kneeling in silence. Gukrin suddenly bows his head low, offering a formal apology for his previous behavior. Gukrin insists on the apology anyway, wanting to settle his own conscience. Tang Yunmyung smiles and tells him to forget such trivial matters, but Gukrin suddenly looks past him in terror. His eye widens as he screams a warning for Tang Yunmyung to look behind him. Tang Yunmyung is caught off guard as Gukrin leaps toward him with a sword. Gukrin's eyes are bloodshot, fueled by the desperate desire to take everyone down with him. Tang Yunmyung spins around in shock as a black slash flies his way. Gukrin wears a manic smile while a dark aura surrounds him, determined to make the boy suffer just like he did. Gukrin screams Tang Yunmyung's name in terror as the boy's eye widens. Gukrin swings his broken blade downward, channeling his dark energy into the strike. Gukrin swings his broken blade downward with a trail of dark aura, but he immediately falters as a terrifying sensation overcomes him. But his words are cut short as he coughs up blood. Tang Yunmyung remains calm, questioning if they should preserve the body for later processing. Blood and tears stream down Ukrin's face as he realizes the boy before him is truly heartless. Watching from a distance, the scarred participant is stunned that such a top-tier contender was overpowered so easily. He recalls Gukrin's mastery over the black and white sword school's techniques, making this defeat a shock. The scarred purple-haired participant watches Tang Yunmyung, shaken by the mastery of his dual sword technique and the mystery of his plans. Tang Yunmyung turns to confirm they are the final survivors, offering to forfeit the match. Admitting he has no idea how to leave the area, Tang Yunmyung raises his blade and carves a swirling portal into the air, ordering the stunned participant to depart. The participant rushes toward the exit with a quick word of thanks, looking back at the rift before he finally smiles in relief. At the Tae-Yul-Muk faction headquarters, the members practice their swordsmanship while questioning the outcome of the recent conflict. Jukrin's father, the scarred leader of the faction, holds a Myung-go bug used to monitor his children's lives from a distance. When the creature suddenly withers, he crushes it in his palm, realizing his youngest son has been killed. He recalls Jukrin's childhood as an illegitimate son born to a servant, a child whose potential dwarfed that of his siblings. The man grits his teeth in the shadows, confessing that he nearly murdered the boy dozens of times to ensure his eldest son's inheritance remains secure. Consumed by fury and regret, Gyukrin's father clenches his fist, admitting he only allowed his child to live as a spy for the Tang family because he was powerless to save him. He strikes the stone structure before him with enough force to make it rattle against the burning sky, swearing to avenge his son. With his eyes glowing red, he turns to his followers and commands every disciple to prepare for the coming battle on Mount Gongsan. He stands before the gathered Tae-Yul-Mook faction, declaring that the moment to crush the Tang family has arrived while their leaders are distracted elsewhere. Veins bulge as he screams a final death warrant, vowing that every single person carrying the Tang name will die on that mountain. Deep within a dark forest, an observer notes that the current situation feels strange. Tang Yunyong tears into his meal, frustrated that he hasn't encountered a single soul despite traveling day and night. He rests by his campfire, concluding that this isolation is a calculated ruse and the only survivors left must be from the Juga family. He recognizes that the Tae clan isn't cooperating and suspects the Juga family is positioning themselves to exert influence over his own Tang family. Far from the forest, the brown-haired elder flinches as an unseen voice warns him that his family will pay a high price for their arrogance. He stands paralyzed in his dark room, staring into the shadows as the night sky marks the transition to a more dangerous phase of the game. The moon hangs bright over the forest clearing, where Tang Yun-myung rests on a grassy slope. He admires the stars and wishes his mother could see them, wondering if she is doing well. He eventually drifts into a deep sleep, unaware as a dark shadow falls over him. The silhouetted assailant, a mysterious hunter with a glowing purple eye, stands over his sleeping form and confirms the target is found. Pink-haired eye-patch girl pauses, looking down at the sleeping Tang Yun-myung to question his identity. Her mission was to intercept the last survivor or Yun-myung while they were vulnerable. She decides he is someone other than Tang Gukrin, but she continues to watch him sleep and acknowledges his handsome features. Crouching by the boy, she considers whether he is the grandson of Zhuge Changshin. The pink-haired eye-patch girl swallows a pill, resolving that her target must die for her to move forward. She releases a swirling pink poison into the air and draws a bloody dagger, justifying the kill as a necessary part of the competition. Tang Yun-myung lies still with his eyes closed, but he speaks aloud, questioning if she is actually ready for this. He suddenly reaches out and grabs her by the throat, lifting her off the ground as he interrogates her about a secret deal with the Juga family to ambush the final survivor. He tightens his grip, leaving her gasping in shock that he anticipated her every move. Pink-haired eye-patch girl crushes the scarred purple-haired participant's throat, warning him that his survival depends on how quickly he answers her questions. Dang Yijun lifts her opponent off the ground by his throat, questioning if he has a death wish while he struggles to breathe and regrets dropping his weapon. The man suddenly recognizes her by name, a revelation that leaves her wondering how he could possibly know her identity. She gives him a sinister smile, unaware that her captive is already considering a violent retaliation. Far from the clearing, an elder from the Juga family clutches his head in frustration as he realizes his plan. The Jagal elder pinches the bridge of his nose, struggling to understand how number 28 managed to overcome such high-level opponents. While number 10 had been dominating the field, his momentum came to a dead stop the moment he faced number 28. The elder considers swapping number 10 for another trainee. Like number 2, yet he remains uncertain if even that will be enough to end number 28's streak. He paces the room, realizing that if number 28 wins the next round, his entire plan will be ruined. His panic is interrupted by a sudden glow that floods the room from outside. A massive beam of energy descends from the heavens, drawing the gaze of a vast crowd gathered in the valley below. Standing near Mount Gongsan, the swordsman and the brawler watch the display, noting the power radiating from the site. Around him, the gathered martial artists share his unease, questioning if their side can truly withstand the forces gathering against them. Zhong Yan-song acknowledges that their current response seems excessive, but insists it is a necessity when stepping into hostile territory. Looking toward the sect headquarters, he warns that this faction is far more dangerous than any they have previously faced, and that a lack of numbers will guarantee their defeat. He continues to spiral into tactical theories, hoping the enemy chooses to remain sidelined once the fighting begins. The gray-haired swordsman stands by in silence, his patience wearing thin as he listens to the analysis. When Zhang Yan-song continues to voice his anxiety, the swordsman suddenly grips his shoulder to cut him off. Looming with a crushing aura, the gray-haired swordsman commands him to end the nonsense and get moving. The swordsman's eyes widen as he connects the dots, realizing that the location of the competition shouldn't be known unless someone is actively participating. He considers reporting to the security forces, but a darker possibility takes root. If he uses outside help to eliminate number 28, their original plan will remain buried forever. His suspicion turns into a sharp, malicious grin as he settles on the betrayal. Nearby, the girl with the eye patch lifts the pink-haired victim off the ground, by her throat, leaving the woman certain her life is over. But the attacker is already looking past her victim, concealing a fire dragon explosive behind her back, as she calculates her chance to take down her real target. She studies the bloodied sword lodged in the ground, and wonders if the red residue is a toxin. A voice taunts her for being unfamiliar with the poison, but she ignores the jab, grinning as she realizes her opponent is distracted. She tightens her grip on a red explosive cylinder, determined to end him, then whips her arm forward to hurl the device with lethal force. Before it can find its mark, the unknown catcher intervenes and snatches the explosive right out of the air. The pink-haired eye patch girl examines the red cylinder she intercepted, demanding to know its purpose. She identifies the substance as a large dose of poison meant for a blade and seizes the scarred purple-haired participant by the face. Her grip tightens, forcing his jaw open while he remains pinned. She mocks his lack of escape, while he finally breaks his silence to beg for release, but his frantic pleas only amuse her as he thrashes on his knees, finally willing to talk. Refusing to listen, she forces the cylinder toward his mouth as he stares in horror. He gags as she jams the poison inside, forcing him to taste his own weapon. The unknown catcher looms over her captive as he warns her that the red cylinder contains a lethal poison. She studies the vial, weighing the captive's claim that this is hawang, a drug his group relies on. A manic grin spreads across her face as she realizes the potential power in her hands, convinced that consuming it will make her path effortless. Terrified, the captive begs for his life and tries to surrender, but the unknown catcher ignores his pleas and forces his jaw open, mockingly promising to help him fight better. Her eye glows with a cold intensity as she reminds him that he hasn't finished answering her questions. The pink-haired eye patch girl grips the scarred participant by the neck, demanding he reveal the details of his secret agreement with the Jake family. Her eye glows with a green light as she warns him that any hesitation will result in him being fed to Hwyong. The mention of a marriage proposal catches her by surprise, and the terrified man desperately explains that the union is meant to bind the Jia Cat and Tang families together. She considers the weight of his promise to marry the head of the Soga, realizing the Jia Cat leadership is using this political move to solidify their power. Pink-haired eye patch girl ignores the demand to end her opponent's life, choosing instead to drink deeply from a red container. The scarred, purple-haired participant lunges forward and grabs her arm, stunned as she continues to gulp down the liquid. She remains indifferent to his panic, questioning why he is staring since she never offered him a drink. The scarred, purple-haired participant clutches his throat, sweating as the reality of her actions sets in. A manic grin spreads across his face, his eyes wide with terror. Pink-haired eye patch girl lowers the empty vessel. Finding the contents interesting, the scarred, purple-haired participant's body erupts into a roar of flames, his silhouette glowing within the heat. He screams in agony as the fire consumes him. The scarred, purple-haired participant, an injured fighter wreathed in flames, screams in agony while mocking the pink-haired eye patch girl for ingesting his poison. She maintains a firm grip on his face and retorts that she can neutralize any toxin. Standing on the moonlit hill, he shouts that she will burn to death, but his confidence turns to dread when he realizes her strength remains unshaken. He stares at her in silence as she sticks out her tongue and complains that the explosive only tasted spicy. He watches her in disbelief, unable to process how she is still standing. Legend speaks of the Ganja, a legendary entity immune to all toxins, capable of killing dozens with a single breath or a drop of its blood. This is the King of the Solitary, a figure of majestic virtue rising above a mountain of the fallen. The pink-haired eye patch girl forces him toward the ground, leaving him paralyzed with fear. She warns him that she is far less merciful than he assumes, her hand steadying as she asserts her dominance. Examining her own palm, she notes that her internal energy has fundamentally changed, manifesting as small flames flickering at her fingertips. He finally masters the martial arts of the Yang Gang, feeling the heat of the sun coursing through his own palms as he examines his new power. While the kneeling figure bows in deep gratitude for his help, The red-haired youth begins to move on, but stops when the midnight sky is suddenly replaced by a blinding sunrise. The landscape shifts around him with frantic speed until he is left standing in a wind-swept field, questioning if the battle has truly ended. His eyes snap open as he senses over 300 hostiles closing in, led by the mysterious silhouettes who surround him with a lethal purple aura. The red-haired youth crosses his arms as he studies the surrounding hostiles, noting their resemblance to his kin despite their suspicious behavior. He smirks while calculating the odds, deciding his side will capitalize on the enemy's numbers and walk them straight into a trap. Drawing a weapon that pulses with a green aura, he steps forward, eager to use this ambush as a chance to sharpen his combat skills. His eyes flare with a toxic light as he readies his strike, declaring that only one person is walking away from this field alive. Standing in the courtyard, the helmeted guard questions the report he just heard. He reels from the news of an intrusion, as the elder confirms that a spy has been operating within their own ranks. Inside the courtyard, a scout delivers a grim report to Master Jaegel, detailing an invasion force of over 300 troops. Jaegel is stunned to learn the enemy is led by Mak Inhyu, the formidable leader of the Dark Moon Sword sect. The scout grows anxious, unable to fathom how their secret formation was compromised or why a sect from Sichuan has traveled this far. He urges the elder to launch an immediate counterattack. Yet, Jaegel hesitates. Jaegel is overwhelmed, admitting this scenario was beyond his calculations. He reveals that the enemies have reached the inner world where the goo poison match is held, a zone the clan specifically designed to be unreachable by any outside interference. The clan instructor accepts their grim reality, noting that the elders are now powerless to intervene. As the sun sets, the clan's only hope rests with the trainees trapped inside to survive the crisis on their own. Our protagonist stands over a field littered with the dead, where a single needle buried in a corpse's skull reveals the precision of the strike. Mak Inhyu and his subordinate soon discover the body of the youngest member of their sect lying among the fallen. The subordinate examines a poison needle wound on the neck, and confirms the boy was taken down without a struggle. And his men sprint forward to hunt down anyone still hiding. Dark Moon Sect members fan out across the territory, as Mak Inhyu orders a total sweep, roaring a vow that no one from the Tang family in Gangdong will survive the night. Moving through the search zone, the freckled sect member notes his leader's uncharacteristic display of bloodlust, while the older sect member suspects the body they found earlier belonged to one of their own spies. The younger scout recalls the corpse had nothing but needle marks on the neck, a lethally efficient kill, leading his mentor to warn him that the Tang family targets life itself, rather than just testing martial skill. Just as the freckled sect member promises to stay alert for hidden weapons, a needle buries itself in his throat, and his eyes roll back. Without warning, the freckled sect member collapses face first into the dirt, and the older sect member stares in horror as he identifies a poisoned needle embedded in his companion's neck. Realizing they are under fire, he screams for the Dark Moon Sect members to draw their blades and prepare for an ambush. He scans the tree line and challenges their hidden attacker to show themselves while his men begin to tremble. But his disciple realizes the threat is above and points toward the sky. A massive barrage of glowing green needles rains down like a lethal storm, trapping the men's silhouettes under the descending weight as they watch in despair, the emerald light washing over them. A dense storm of glowing green poison needles pours down on the Dark Moon Sect, catching the men off guard as the projectiles strike their faces and chests. The red-haired youth stands calmly at the center of the carnage while the fighters around him collapse in agony. He smiles with confidence, noting the exceptional lethality of his single-palm blazing poison technique. Gathering more toxic energy in his hand, he explains that massive amounts of poison are the most efficient way to handle common foot soldiers. He thrusts his palm forward to release another burst, piercing a man's skull as the energy surges across the earth. Green streaks slash through the remaining ranks, leaving the ground littered with motionless bodies and discarded swords. Our protagonist admires his poison needles, realizing the stream technique allows him to fire them with very little internal energy. He walks away from the carnage left on the path, deciding to track down the remaining search teams that fled to the east. In a forest clearing, the reporting sect member informs the muscular man and the white-haired man that their search teams have been wiped out. He explains that the bodies show no signs of external struggle, having been killed by the same lethal poison found on their earlier scouts. Every man was eliminated using the exact same method. Mak Inhu's subordinate flags his leader down with a grim expression. Scouts rush back from the lookouts with a desperate report that the Eastern search party has been wiped out. The white-haired man reels at the news that not a single group survived the sweep, looking over the remaining disciples and realizing how few men they have left. His subordinate reports that nearly 100 men have fallen in just 1 hour, all killed in the exact same way. Sweating from the pressure, the white-haired man suggests that a single attacker might be responsible for the slaughter. He clenches his fist as he admits they are being hunted, then passes command to his subordinate to prepare for the coming fight. Mak In-hyu decides to personally prepare for a rear ambush against the ghostly throwing techniques, targeting them, surprising his subordinate. Refusing to lose any more disciples to the unknown attacker, he hands over command of the main unit to his second-in-command. The Dark Moon sect members wade through a shallow river, scanning the dense forest for any sign of movement. The subordinate grows tense as he realizes there isn't a single hint of a presence nearby, the silence itself feeling like a threat. With the sun dipping below the canopy, he knows they only have an hour or two before total darkness sets in. If the ambusher remains hidden until nightfall, the entire group faces annihilation, leading him to consider a retreat before the losses become irreversible. His orders are cut short by a voice from above challenging his authority. Perched high in the canopy, the red-haired youth looms over the gathered men and calmly declares that he has no intention of letting them leave alive. Mak In-hu's subordinate freezes, realizing he failed to sense the intruder's approach. He shouts for his men to dodge, but a rain of dark needles pierces through the group as the subordinate watches his force collapse in an instant. Mak In-hu's subordinate stares at his fallen men, their bodies riddled with needles, realizing he never even felt the intruder's presence. The red-haired youth stands amidst the carnage and asks if he's finally found the leader. The subordinate's eye twitches as he tries to understand how someone could approach them without being detected, realizing this boy is the one responsible for the entire massacre. He studies his opponent, unable to believe someone so young could possess such lethal ability. As green energy streaks back into the boy's palm, the subordinate wonders if he's witnessing void absorption, but he immediately rejects the thought, convinced that only enlightened masters can reach that level of power. Watching the red-haired youth retrieve his attack instead of striking again, the subordinate decides the technique must drain massive amounts of internal energy. Mak In-hu's subordinate smirks, calling the decision to forego a surprise attack an arrogant move for someone so talented. Our boy remains unfazed while adjusting his sleeve, even as the man claims the Tang family has no record of him. The subordinate's confusion is brief, cut short when our hero declares that a man destined to die today has no need for his name. Enraged, the subordinate clenches his fist to gather his energy and erupts in a shroud of fire. To grant our hero's death wish, he launches himself forward in an explosive burst and lunges with a lethal strike. Mak In-hu's subordinate lunges forward with a roar, promising a swift death, but the red-haired youth stands his ground, without flinching. With a casual wave of his hand, the youth parries the explosive strike, sending the larger man flying backward through the air. The subordinate stares in disbelief that his strongest technique was so easily brushed aside, while the youth mocks him with a smile. Looking down at his opponent, the red-haired youth questions if that display was really his limit, and as the subordinate glares in fury, the youth challenges him to gather every bit of strength he has left. Since all panels provided in the analysis are designated as filler panels, with no story content, there is no narration to generate for this sequence, and raises his hand with an awkward gesture. The red-haired youth acknowledges the sign, offering a warm smile and a nod. The brown-haired elder watches the boy's back, his hand tightening on his fan, as his suspicion grows. The red-haired youth suddenly turns with a menacing glare, forcing the elder to flinch and clear his throat. As his red eye glows, the red-haired youth considers killing the elder on the spot before deciding to hold back. Yeonmyeong resolves to avoid any blame until he takes his place as head, while warrior Wonjin breathes a sigh of relief to find him alive. Yeonmyeong bows deeply to his instructor, apologizing for the concern he caused and promising to look after the Tang clan elders. Wonjin turns to the group, demanding an explanation for what happened inside the grounds, but a violent rumble cuts him short as a crack tears through the mountain. The trainees scramble in fear as the ground shakes, staring in awe at the brilliant light erupting from the split in the cliff. The Jaegal elder breaks into a cold sweat, realizing the formation containing the Seven Locks Phantom Dome is finally breaking apart. A massive pillar of blue light surges upward as the Phantom Dome formation shatters. The trainees stand in awe of the light, watching as falling fragments of the barrier reflect the horror of the scene within. Our MC looks up at the sky and notes that the truth is now plain to see. He and the shocked onlookers stare at the field revealed behind the dome, where dozens of bodies lie scattered across the grass. The scale of the carnage becomes clear as more of the fallen are uncovered, and the masked sect members realize that the Dark Moon Sword Sect really did launch a full-scale invasion under Mak Inhu. The gray-capped sect member sweats as he surveys the carnage, stunned that a single man caused this much destruction. He stares at the field of bodies, noting that even his own skills would fail against 30 opponents. When a subordinate calls for his attention, they find a body lying in the blood-soaked grass. The twin sword sheaths and scarred face confirm the fallen warrior is the infamous Mak Inhu. A brown-haired elder clutches his head in terror, realizing their target can effortlessly slaughter masters of this caliber. Tang Yunyang stands before them as a calm silhouette, dismissing the entire enemy force as a minor hurdle. The sect member watches him with growing dread, acknowledging the young man's lethality. As Tang Yunmyung glances back over his shoulder, the sect member realizes this boy has already surpassed the power of their own leader. The crowd erupts in shock as they realize Tang Yunmyung took down hundreds of opponents single-handedly, including the famous Dark Moon Sword Sect. They whisper that he is already beyond the final level and was destined for the top from the start. The white-haired participant seethes with resentment while staring down at his bandaged arm, bitter that he has become deadweight because of his injuries. While the crowd cheers, the white-haired participant glares at the winner with envy. He cannot understand how a man he once considered weak and incapable of learning martial arts reached these heights. His eye twitches with rage until the instructor's voice cuts through the noise to announce the tournament is over. The official declares Tang Yanmyong the sole winner and challenges anyone present to bring forward an objection. The white-haired participant's hand throbs with tension as he grips his ruined arm and settles on a desperate plan. Tang Wanjin challenges the crowd one last time, but with the injured participant clutching his arm, no one steps forward. He formally declares the tournament over, his voice causing a nearby elder to flinch. On his command, masked warriors march forward in unison. They assemble into a massive formation that dwarfs the remaining trainees, who are left stunned by the presence of so many elite fighters. Tang Wanjin speaks of the decades since the Tang clan's fall and the long wait for this moment. He announces that the leader of their revival has finally been born as Tang Yunmyung stands firm. In a single motion, 82 warriors drop to their knees to swear their loyalty. Tang Wanjin bows deeply, formally welcoming the new head of the Tang clan. Dozens of masked sect members kneel in unison on the hillside, shouting a formal greeting to their new head. Yunmyung looks down at Tang Wanjin, who remains bowed in respect before him. The sect members wait in silence, their focus entirely on the man who now leads them. Watching from the sidelines, the purple-haired trainee and her companions are stunned by the massive shift in Yunmyung's status. As he stands before them, the pink-haired trainee and the others whisper nervously, wondering if they even have the right to speak to him casually anymore. Tang Wanjin looks up with hope, believing that a leader this young and talented can finally restore their clan's reputation across the land. Wanjin's eyes widen when Yunmyung interrupts his thoughts, claiming he already knows exactly what the sect desires. With fierce determination, Yunmyung declares that he will turn their ambitions into reality sooner than they think. Tang Yunmyung's words strike deep into the gray-capped sect members, making them feel as if he has seen into their very souls. They drop to their knees in a massive display of devotion, swearing to follow the tournament winner as the true head of the Tang clan. Tang Yunmyung accepts their loyalty with a commanding look, ordering his new army to prepare for their return to the main house. He sets off across the fields with Yori and Mirio at his side, leading the long line of warriors toward their next objective. Watching from a distance, the rival reels in disbelief, gritting his teeth as he wonders why Tang Yunmyung is the one who receives everything. His eyes burn red as he vows to destroy his enemy, even if it costs him his soul. The sun breaks over a rugged mountain peak, revealing a field of defeated cultists scattered across the grass. The Taehyo elder steps into the clearing, surveying the wreckage and realizing his targets have already escaped. He admits he moved as fast as he could, watching in surprise as figures leap through the air above, while his subordinate warns him not to rush into the fray alone. Hyunzo looms behind Taehyo elder, demanding he finally start acting like a leader. Taehyo elder brushes off the scolding to focus on the unnatural silence, even as Hyunzo tries to bring him back to the lecture. Looking down at the valley of dead cultists, Hyunzo admits that no army could move through this terrain without being heard. He notes the eerie lack of noise from the Black Moon forces, who should have been spotted miles away. Taehyo elder surveys the open mountain, arguing that a conflict this large would be impossible to miss in the wilderness. Hyunso realizes the enemy might be taking specific routes to avoid a direct confrontation. They stand together on the slope as Taeheo Elder considers the Tang family's recent gift of valuables, suspecting the tribute was sent to mask a deeper secret. Hyunzo, a Subo of the large joint sect, surveys the carnage and wonders how the Tang family's blade techniques could have fallen so far. When the Taeheo Elder mentions the use of a short blade, Hyunso reels in shock, realizing the Elder believes a single person is responsible for every death. The Taeheo Elder remains serious, insisting his eyes cannot be deceived by the scene before them. Looking closer at the fallen members of the Dark Moon Sword Sect, he points out that while the techniques used were learned, they lacked mastery, leaving the wounds disorganized. Hyunzo breaks into a cold sweat as the Elder explains that many of the dead never managed to draw their weapons, having been cut down in seconds. Driven by the need to find this mysterious warrior, the Taeheo Elder declares they must leave for Sichuan immediately, and waves a greeting, receiving a silent nod from the red-haired trainee. The Elder stares down in shock, sweating as he tries to understand how his formation was defeated. He visualizes the layered defenses of the Seven Locks Phantom Dome, unable to fathom how Tang Yanmyeong could slice through such a complex structure. As he watches Yanmyeong's silhouette in the clearing, the Elder realizes the trainee is far more dangerous than he first appeared. Yanmyeong suddenly leans into his space, forcing the startled Elder to awkwardly clear his throat and pull back. Behind a mask of cold control, Yanmyeong suppresses the urge to kill the Elder, where he stands. Warrior Wonjin approaches to confirm Yanmyeong is safe, while Yanmyeong reminds himself to avoid any public blame until his position as clan head is secured. He offers a polite bow and a reassuring smile to the instructor, privately deciding that the Elders will be the first ones he deals with once he takes power. He stares in shock at the few remaining trainees. Realizing most of the group is gone, the ground suddenly shakes, throwing the crowd into a panic as they struggle to stay upright. The masked instructor signals toward the cliff, where a jagged, glowing crack tears through the rock. The Taeheo Elder breaks into a sweat, recognizing that the unit holding the Seven Locks Phantom Dome formation is failing. The massive magical seal shatters into fragments of light, and the force of the collapse blasts the nearby bystanders off their feet. The magical dome shatters into 1,000 fragments, leaving the bystanders stunned as they catch glimpses of the carnage reflected in the falling shards. Two participants look out over the battlefield, paralyzed by the sight of what transpired inside the barrier. A massive field stretches out before them, littered with the bodies of hundreds of defeated enemies, while even more fallen warriors lie scattered across the grass near the tree line. The masked instructor stands among the corpses and identifies the uniforms of the Dark Moon Sword Sect, confirming that Mak In-hyu led his army to the mountain. He stares at the devastation, unable to comprehend how one man could have wiped out an entire force by himself. His eyes widen as he calculates the power required for such a feat. But a guard shouts to get his attention. The instructor approaches the body lying in the blood-stained grass, identifying the dead man as Mak In-hyu by the twin sword sheaths on his back. This discovery leaves the Taeheo Elder and the instructor shaken, forcing them to realize that even a master like In-hyu was no match for Yanmyeong. When the instructor looks back, Yanmyeong dismisses the entire enemy force as a minor nuisance, despite their numbers. Sweat beads on the instructor's face as he acknowledges Yanmyeong's growth, concluding that the trainee has surpassed the strength of a clan head. Word spreads through the crowd as the other participants realize Yanmyeong defeated hundreds of famous Dark Moon Sword Sect members alone, making his claim to leadership undeniable. Amidst the awe, the angry participant clutches his bandaged arm and seethes, cursing Yanmyeong for leaving him behind as deadweight. The crowd murmurs in awe at Tang Yanmyeong's strength, while one trainee watches with resentment. He seethes at the result, unable to accept that someone he once considered talentless has surpassed him. His bitter thoughts are cut short by the masked instructor, who announces that the tournament is concluding. The instructor's voice booms across the grounds as he names Tang Yanmyeong the sole winner and challenges anyone present to object. The trainee clenches his fist, his bandaged arm throbbing with pain. He grips his injury, forced to admit that he lacks the strength to change the outcome. As the instructor asks one final time for any challengers, the boy remains silent among the crowd. With no objections raised, the instructor officially closes the tournament while the elder observes the final result. The masked instructor orders the warriors to assemble before the tournament's victor, Tang Yanmyeong. A massive formation of masked warriors steps forward, their numbers leaving the surviving trainees stunned. Looking toward the horizon, the instructor reflects on the decades since the Tang clan fell. He declares that the leader who will revive their legacy has finally been born, appointing Tang Yanmyeong as their new master. The instructor drops to one knee, identifying himself as Tang Wan-jin, and counting 82 warriors under his command. He bows his head in a formal greeting, recognizing Tang Yanmyeong as the rightful head of the clan. Following his lead, the entire assembly of 82 warriors falls to their knees across the hillside to pledge their loyalty. Tang Yanmyeong stands in silence, looking down at the forces now sworn to his name. The masked warriors remain kneeling in a display of submission. Tang Mirio and the other trainees watch the scene, stunned by how much treatment shifts the moment someone becomes the clan head. While Tang Yanmyeong stands calmly, Mirio whispers to the others about whether they must now speak formally to their former peer. Tang Wan-jin remains on the ground, considering the potential of a leader who hasn't even reached 20 years of age. He believes Yanmyeong is the key to regaining their reputation as a prestigious clan across Sacheon, but his thoughts are interrupted when Yanmyeong speaks directly to their hidden desires. With confidence, Yanmyeong promises that their goals will soon become a reality if they simply trust him and wait. The warriors look up, moved by a leader who seems to read their minds and whose words carry the heavy authority of his new position. The masked warriors drop to their knees and bow deeply, acknowledging Tang Yanmyeong as the tournament winner and the true head of the Tang clan. Now standing as their leader, Yanmyeong issues his first order commanding the group to prepare for their return to the main house. The unified force of warriors and trainees begins their march across the open fields. From a distance, a defeated participant watches the procession with growing bitterness. He grits his teeth in a fit of envy, unable to accept that Yanmyeong has claimed everything for himself. As the group moves on, the participant's eyes burn with a demonic light as he vows to destroy Yeonmyeong, even if it means selling his soul for revenge. Sunlight breaks over the mountain peaks to reveal a clearing littered with the bodies of fallen cultists. The Taehyo elder walks through the grass with his hands behind his back, wondering if the killers have already fled. He notes that he arrived as quickly as possible, but a shout from the distance cuts him off. Hyunso drops from the sky to land heavily behind him, demanding to know why the elder ventured out alone. He looms over his superior, insisting that a man of his standing must finally start acting the part. The elder casually adjusts his glasses and notes the area is suspiciously quiet, though Hyunso refuses to let him change the subject. Hyunso gestures to the blood-soaked ground, noting that no one could sleep beside a mountain of corpses. He surveys the field where over 300 men lie dead, impressed that the Tang family held their ground despite being outnumbered 3-1. The Taehyo elder remains skeptical, pointing out that an open mountain should have carried the sounds of such a massive slaughter. Hyunso realizes this means the survivors are intentionally avoiding their group. The elder questions their motives, especially since the Tang family recently sent valuables to honor the tournament. He suspects they are hiding something significant from the rest of the martial world. The elder confirms the theory, trusting his own eyes to see the truth of the massacre. Hyunso examines the body of Mok In-hyu, noting that the messy sword wounds show signs of learned techniques, but no true mastery. He breaks into a cold sweat upon realizing the attacker's speed was so overwhelming that most victims died before they could even draw their steel. The Taehyo elder resolves to find the person responsible and declares they are leaving for Sichuan immediately. He panics, sweating as he questions how 300 soldiers and the Dark Moon sword sect could be wiped out by a single young opponent. The red-haired trainee meets his outburst with an intimidating glare that forces the elder to flinch behind his fan. The gray-haired trainee observes the exchange from the side and raises a hand. The red-haired trainee smirks, clearly unfazed by the reported slaughter, while the elder stares at the ground, overwhelmed by the news. Tang Yanmyeong tears through the glowing blue barrier with a single slash as the elder watches in silence. The old man breaks into a cold sweat, realizing no one should be able to cut down the Seven Locks formation. Even a seasoned master would be trapped by these laws and punishments, yet the boy carves through the complex magical defenses as if they were nothing. The elder stares at the boy's back, trembling as he realizes the true extent of this power, but he flinches when Tang Yanmyeong suddenly glares back to silence him. Our protagonist suppresses a murderous urge, knowing he must avoid any scandal until he officially claims his place as the head of the clan. The black-capped instructor watches the interaction and finally confirms that Tang Yanmyeong is safe. Our protagonist bows respectfully to warrior Wanjin, apologizing for the trouble he caused and promising to look after the clan elders first. Wanjin shares his relief at their safety, but immediately questions what happened to the rest of the group. A sudden tremor cuts him off as a massive crack splits the cliff face. The trainees scramble for balance, fearing an earthquake is tearing the mountain apart. Blinding light pours from the fissure, drawing every eye to the cliffside. The Taehyo Elder realizes the formation holding the Seven Locks Phantom Dome is collapsing. The magic circle shatters, launching beams of energy toward the heavens. The massive barrier suddenly shatters, releasing a blinding light that throws those nearby off balance. As the group stares up in shock, they realize the falling fragments are reflecting scenes from within the dome. Top-knot trainee demands to know what they're looking at, while the black-capped instructor struggles to process the images flickering in the shards. Red-haired trainee and beanie trainee watch as the truth is revealed, noting that the destruction before them is the final result of the conflict. The fragments reveal a vast grassy field littered with the bodies of defeated warriors, a massacre that stretches across the entire landscape. The black-capped instructor identifies the fallen as members of the Dark Moon Sword Sect, confirming that Mak In-hyu really did lead his army to the mountain. He breaks into a sweat upon realizing that one man somehow annihilated this entire force alone. The instructor surveys the massacre in shock, admitting even he would have struggled against 30 enemies, when a voice calls him over to a specific body. He looks down at a bloodied corpse and identifies the man as Mak In-hyu of the Dark Moon Sword Sect by his signature twin sheaths. One of the elders panics, realizing that even a master of that caliber was no match for their student. Tang Yeonmyeong stands with his back turned, casually dismissing the feat as an easy task despite the overwhelming numbers. The instructor breaks into a cold sweat as he recognizes the boy's monstrous potential. As Yeonmyeong looks back with composure, the instructor realizes he has already surpassed the strength of a clan head. The other trainees gossip about the fall of the famous sect, while Yori and Ajeon beam with pride, causing their friend to ask why they are the ones acting so impressed. One trainee clutches his bandaged arm, cursing the injury that turned him into deadweight. He watches the crowd's awe with jealousy, focusing his rage on Tang Yeonmyeong. To him, the winner was once a weakling who couldn't even grasp the basics of martial arts. His eyes widen at a sudden shout as the instructor declares Tang Yeonmyeong the champion. Pain flares through the trainee's hand, and he clutches the wound, realizing he is too weak to protest. He looks away in silence when the instructor asks for any final objections. The black-capped instructor steps forward to officially close the proceedings, declaring the tournament finished now that every requirement for a fair conclusion has been met. He immediately commands the hidden warriors to assemble before the victor, Tang Yeonmyeong. The sheer number of masked figures emerging from the shadows leaves the surrounding trainees stunned by the presence of so many elite fighters. The black-capped instructor speaks of the long decades following the downfall of the Tang clan, announcing that the wait for a true successor is finally over. As Tang Yeonmyeong stands stoically before the crowd, he is proclaimed the leader who will spearhead the clan's revival. One of the warriors drops to his knee in submission, reporting that 82 members besides Tang Wonjin are ready to serve their new master. He offers a formal greeting to acknowledge the change in leadership, and the entire assembly follows suit, kneeling in unison as they pledge their loyalty to the new head of the Tang clan. A sect member kneels in respect behind Tang Yeonmyeong, signaling a shift in his standing that the others can hardly believe. The trainees watch the display in awe. The kneeling member sees a future where Yeonmyeong's youth and growth transform their status, convinced that the clan is about to reclaim its lost reputation. Yeonmyeong meets their expectations with a vow to make that vision a reality, demanding their trust while he restores the Tang name. The clan members are deeply moved, feeling as though Yeonmyeong has reached into their very souls with his speech. They acknowledge the weight of his leadership and drop to their knees in unison, swearing to follow the tournament winner as the one true head of the Tang clan. Yeonmyeong doesn't waste time basking in the glory, looking back to order his new followers to move out for the main house. With Yori and Ijeon at his side, he leads the massive army across the field toward the setting sun. One participant refuses to join the celebration, watching the procession from a distance with a face twisted by bitter envy. As the group walks away, his eyes burn with a dark resolve, swearing to bring Yeonmyeong down even if he has to sell his soul to the devil for the chance at vengeance. The sun sets on the mountain where the bodies of dead sect members lie scattered across the grass. The Taehyo elder arrives at the scene, surveying the carnage and questioning if the killers have already fled. He notes his own quick arrival, but a subordinate calls out to him, leaping through the air with several others before landing to reprimand the Taehyo elder for rushing ahead alone, instead of acting according to his rank. The Taehyo elder takes a slow drag from his pipe, feigning deafness as Hyunso tries to keep him on task. Looking out over the valley, Hyunso surveys the carnage and notes that no one could stay in a place so choked with the dead. He counts over 300 bodies, marveling that the Tang family, a clan with fewer than 100 men on this mountain, could inflict such a staggering number of casualties. The elder finds the silence suspicious, questioning how a massacre in such an open area could have occurred without a single rumor reaching their ears. Hyunso asks if the Tang family is intentionally moving to avoid their path. He narrows his eyes, convinced the family is concealing a dark secret. Hyunso strokes his chin while examining the precision of the kills, but he recoils in shock when the elder mentions a short blade, realizing that every one of these 300 deaths was the work of a single person. The Taeheo elder surveys the aftermath with a sharp gaze, confident that the killer cannot hide their tracks from him. He examines the fallen sect members and notes that while they were defeated by formal sword techniques, the execution lacked the precision of a true master. Driven by the mystery of a fighter who possesses such lethal speed without formal mastery, the Taeheo elder decides they must travel to Sichuan to find them. Empty. Hyunso is stunned by the decision to travel to Sichuan, protesting that the journey is far too dangerous. Even when warned about the risk of an ambush, Taeheo elder remains unmoved, reminding his disciple that his mastery is at its peak. Hyunso watches Taeheo elder walk away, sweating as he realizes that while his master is safe, he remains a target. He eventually sighs in resignation, admitting that Taeheo elder's stubbornness is impossible to overcome. Taeheo elder finally concedes to one request, agreeing to return to the family clan to inform the head before they depart. The Black Death Alliance currently holds the south, and the demonic cult dominates the west, leaving the joint faction in a desperate struggle to survive. Standing over the bodies of his fallen enemies, Hyunso considers his master's plan to seek out the head of the Tang family. He wonders if the goal is to leverage the Tangs against the Black Death Alliance, before finally moving on the demonic cult. Hyunso turns his back on the carnage, doubting whether the long-ruined Tang family can actually fulfill their part in such a scheme. As he sprints toward his next destination, he silently prays that the situation won't force him to unleash the demon sword technique. Within the walls of the Tang family estate, Elder Sam Jangro remains focused on his calligraphy until a messenger announces that the competition participants have finally arrived. Elder Sam Jangro sets aside his brush, noting that the competition concluded much faster than he anticipated. He remains confident that Tang Young-Gryong's mastery over the fire dragon's poison guarantees her victory in the trials. A messenger arrives at the door with a hesitant report, revealing that Tang Young-Gryong is not among the participants who have returned, leaving the elders stunned. At the estate gates, two guards debate the likely winner, weighing the skills of the leader's disciple against Tang Young-Gryong's drive to prove herself. Their conversation is cut short when a large, unfamiliar group approaches the entrance, led by a muscular man whose intense gaze and Tang family crest signal an arrival they didn't expect. Onlookers gather at the gates in surprise, wondering how the trials ended so quickly and who claimed victory. The pink-haired man walks through the entrance with a stoic expression, drawing whispers from onlookers who do not recognize him. His arrival leaves the shocked women in the crowd stunned, their eyes locked on the newcomer as he passes. A panicked father shoves through the people, screaming for his daughter, Soyi. He scans the returning warriors with a frantic gaze, his face wet with tears as he calls her name. A short-haired trainee shouts in relief as the survivors return, grateful the death toll wasn't as high as rumored. Jungil is surprised to find the deputy commander watching him from the crowd, though the commander warns his officials to keep their expectations low. Families surge toward the formation to find their children, but several fathers collapse in tears when they realize their loved ones are missing. Seeing their grief, Yun Myung considers his own mother's worry and wonders if she will even recognize him after his drastic transformation. He smiles at the thought of her shock, but the pink-haired girl with glasses interrupts his reflection. She points toward the administration building, where the deputy commander and his officials wait to receive the survivors. Yori points out her father to Yun Myung, the man relieved to see her standing safe. Yun Myung smirks, realizing she's already angling for him to look after her family. She doesn't deny it, gripping his arm and admitting she won't let such a perfect opportunity pass. Her father has the skills, but has been stuck running errands because he refuses to play the political game. Yun Myung considers the proposal, seeing the value in a man who hasn't been corrupted. He decides it's better to build a loyal faction from the ground up rather than dealing with officials already tied to the elders. His gaze shifts to Ijan and Mirye, noting he needs to uncover their true allegiances and connections to the temple. Before he can plan further, the deputy commander greets the returning group with a boisterous welcome. The deputy commander of the Jegal family greets Tang Kisam with a boisterous laugh, noting how little the family head has changed over the years. Tang Kisum offers a sincere thanks for the support provided to his house, acknowledging that his family remains in their debt. Dismissing the formality, the deputy commander praises the effectiveness of the Seven Locks Phantom Dome formation for securing the participants' travel. A pink-haired man behind Tang Kisum points out that the formation ultimately broke, leaving the family head to nervously admit to the setback. The deputy commander prepares to lead the group toward the elder's house, commanding the weary warriors to stand down and take their rest. His instructions are cut short by Tang Wan-jin, who stuns both leaders by announcing that they will not be visiting the elder. Facing the confused commander, Wan-jin identifies himself as the man currently leading the honor guards. The deputy commander questions Tang Wan-jin's refusal to visit the elder's house, but Wan-jin, the leader of the honor guards, remains calm while citing the competition rules to justify heading to the Stealth and Poisons Hall instead. Incensed by the defiance, the deputy commander orders the crowd to disperse immediately, threatening to punish anyone who dares to protest his authority. Tang Wan-jin realizes the elders are playing a heavy-handed game, forcing their will on the warriors despite the established principles. Suddenly, a challenger steps forward to question whether any official in the main house actually holds more power than the family head himself. As the deputy commander demands to know who is speaking, the challenger just smirks, causing the commander's eye to widen as he claims to be the competition winner, standing confidently before the stunned officials. At the Tang family's main estate, a shout of outrage echoes through the courtyard as the results of the competition arrive. Inside, Elder Sam Jangro and the other officials stare in disbelief, struggling to process the report. When the blue-streaked official confirms that Tang Yen-myung is the winner, Sam Jangro slams his fist onto the table. He glares at the messenger, convinced that Tang Young-grium only lost because she failed to deploy the fire dragon's poison. Tang Sok-jung is stunned by the news that his own disciple Guillaume-myung. Recalling Yeon-myung before the competition, Seok-jung remains convinced that the boy lacked the skill to ever surpass his student. He slams his fist against the table, refusing to believe such growth is possible in 3 years and accusing the winner of foul play. Second Elder Tang Myung-shin argues that while they moved past the war, they cannot let this victory go unexamined. Fourth Elder Tang Jiryong joins the outcry, demanding to know how an underdog could sweep the entire field of candidates. Seok-jung regains his composure and asks where the boy is, deciding the council must interrogate him themselves. A nervous official informs the elders that Yeon-myung has already been summoned to the main estate. The blue-streaked official clenches his hands, stammering that only the family head has the authority to command the heir. He breaks into a sweat, his eyes wide with anxiety as he stands before his guards. But Yeon-myung remains firm, retorting that the elders cannot simply seize control just because the head's seat is empty. He stares the official down, questioning if they truly intend to treat him and his allies as mere rioters. Enraged, the official screams that Yeon-myung's status hasn't been formalized yet, cursing the fact that someone like him actually won the competition. He continues his frenzied tirade, worrying aloud about his own career and the danger of provoking the elders, until Yeon-myung's eyes flare with a green light as he commands the man to be silent. The sudden burst of power sends the official stumbling back in terror. Yeon-myung stands his ground as a massive green aura erupts from his body. The force of the energy knocks the blue-streaked official backward, forcing him to shield his face as he realizes the danger of provoking such power. Yeon-myung looms as a menacing silhouette with glowing eyes, leaving the official certain he is about to die. Sweat pours down the official's face while Yeon-myung dismisses the opinions of the elders. He remains calm amidst the swirling energy, declaring that they will proceed to the Stealth and Poisons Hall as the competition terms demand. With a final glowing glare, Yeon-myung warns the official to tell the elders their reign is coming to an end. In reality, Yeon-myung had been far more blunt, declaring that the time of these old men is over. The official kneels in a cold sweat, confirming the message while intentionally hiding the boy's most insulting remarks. The furious Tang elder slams his fist into the table, releasing a violent burst of energy as he rages that even the Poison Phoenix respected their authority. He decides the council will go to the Stealth and Poisons Hall themselves to test the boy's true power. The long-bearded Tang elder calls the Grand Elder's direct command troop to attention, ordering the Second Elder's troop of integrity and the Fourth Elder's venomous sword troop to mobilize toward the Stealth and Poisons Hall. As the Fifth Elder's shadow troop falls into formation, the elder commands the men to follow their leaders. The master of the Blue Dragon arrives at the elder's side, bowing his head as he receives orders to lead the Blue Dragon force in pursuit. The combined armies march away from the hall, while the elder demands they crush the brat who challenged their authority. Green energy flares around him as he vows to prove who rules the Tang family. Night falls over the Tang family estate as a voice questions the reality of the situation. Tang Jokui demands to know if Tang Yeonmyeong actually won the clan's successor competition, and Yeonmyeong confirms the news with a confident smile. Jokui studies the young man, noting that while his potential was clear years ago, his current aura has reached a new level. His expression softens as he realizes how proud Tang Jihae would be of her son. While Jokui remains calm, Tang Jihaeok grits his teeth in agitation, stumbling back as he fails to process how Yeonmyeong actually won the competition. Years ago, Jokui stood as the sole shield for Jihae and her son when their survival was in doubt, making this victory a sharp contrast to their past. Tang Yeonmyeong stares down his opponent, the memory of a past threat against him and his mother resurfacing. Tang Jihyuk recoils as his own arrogant boasts about revenge are thrown back in his face. Yeonmyeong confirms he hasn't forgotten a single word of that challenge, looming over Jihaek to mock the idea that any compensation is coming for his son's injuries. He warns Jihyuk to be careful with his conduct while staying with the clan, or his son will lose his remaining arm. Watching from the sidelines, the gray-haired youth smiles as he notes just how long Yeonmyeong has been nursing this grudge. The Grand Elder's troop member looks up as a voice demands to know if Tang Yeonmyeong is present. The official reels from the realization that Yeonmyeong is the son of the Poison Phoenix, sweating as he stares at the descendant. Yeonmyeong acknowledges the confusion, but remains calm, insisting that all explanations must wait until the current crisis is resolved. That history erupts into a brutal clash as masked assassins and warriors tear into each other in a chaotic struggle. The Tang clan warriors fight with everything they have, matching the vigor of their invaders in a bloody struggle for survival. As the estate burns around them and weapons fly through the air, the battle descends into chaos. The enemy warriors are stunned as a new presence enters the battlefield. A mysterious figure emerges from the inferno, clutching a severed head and noting that the resistance was more stubborn than anticipated. He holds up the green-haired lord for all to see, prompting screams of despair from the enemy ranks. Looking out over the slaughter, the figure questions why the fighting hasn't ended yet. Standing before a glowing archway, he delivers a final command to release their remaining forces. The enemy onslaught is relentless, as a horde of masked warriors charges through the front lines while ignoring the Tang clan's poison techniques and butchering every disciple in their path. The white-bearded elder recalls the desperation of that day, when his pleas for reinforcements against the Heaven's Brilliance Demon Lord were rejected by the family's leadership. Even as the flame-banded warrior fought through the inferno, the elders back home prepared to shift the blame, shamelessly claiming Tang Jihae caused the catastrophe by resisting the Demon Lord's demands. The masked clan member watches on, realizing she accepted the deposition solely to protect the young lord under her care. The Grand Elder's direct command troops stand in formation, acknowledging the lineage of the current master. To them, this is a chance for redemption and a way to finally fulfill the duties they failed once before. A sudden shout from a distance commands them to stop, and a masked member turns with his eyes wide in shock. Inside the compound, our boy recognizes the voice, and Tang Yeonmyeong suggests they head out to see what is happening. The Tang clan compound stands under heavy tension as the third elder leads his masked guards to the gates, demanding to know if the honor guards believe they can defy the council and remain safe. He glares with fury, questioning their loyalty to the clan's leadership. A member of the direct command troop sweats as the elder demands Tang Yeonmyeong's location, realizing the young master's prediction about this arrival was exactly right. The elder loses his patience and shouts for Yeonmyeong to show himself. Tang Yeonmyeong steps into the open with composure, silencing the elder with his sudden appearance. A youth watches the standoff in disbelief, confused why the council leaders have bypassed the meeting hall to stage this confrontation. The furious Tang elder shouts, demanding to know how Yeonmyeong dares claim the seat of the future leader without their express permission. Yeonmyeong descends the stairs, arguing that his victory has already proven his worth, while the elder insists the results are still under review for fairness. When Yeonmyeong asks what more proof they could possibly need, the elder recoils at the boy's blatant defiance. The crowd turns hostile as the top-knot warrior and the green-haired elder shout down Yeonmyeong for his arrogance and lack of respect toward his superiors. His subordinate steps forward in concern, realizing how quickly the situation is spiraling. The elder leans in, ordering Yeonmyeong to confess everything that happened during the solitude exam if he wants to stay alive. Yeonmyeong only smirks, mocking the elders for treating the family's sacred rules of secrecy as if they meant nothing. As he questions if they truly believe he cheated, the elder screams that he has already heard the truth from the Jegal Lord. Yun Myung then drops a bombshell, revealing that Tang Jukreen and Tong Young Greong murdered the other participants. The elder stares in horror as Yun Myung admits he ended the competition by killing them both, himself. Yun Myung remains indifferent to the shock he caused, arguing that fairness is irrelevant because the deaths occurred after the official match concluded. The elder erupts in a terrifying aura of purple energy, his face contorting as he struggles to process the loss of his kin. Yun Myung looks away and suggests the elder verify the claims by visiting Gangdong Mountain personally. He adds that the bodies should still be where they fell, causing the elder to snap and scream for his death. A massive beam of energy tears through the courtyard, shattering the stone ground where Yun Myung stands. The furious Tang elder lunges forward, channeling a massive burst of blue energy into a lethal strike. Tang Yun Myung remains perfectly still, his hair whipped back by the force of the pressure. A gray-haired youth and the surrounding troop members watch in horror as a pillar of blue lightning obliterates the ground and tosses the clan guards into the air, while the elder screams a final insult. The shockwave tears through the courtyard, knocking masked warriors to the dirt while the elder declares that Yun Myung invited this destruction. Another elder in the crowd stares into the smoke, unable to process the sight, as Yun Myung asks if they really find his survival so hard to believe. As the dust settles, Yun Myung is revealed standing in the center of a massive crater, having caught the elder's full-power strike with a single hand. Tang Yun Myung smirks while channeling a green aura, mocking the assumption that his opponent's granddaughter has already perished. The white-haired elder stares into the crater, shaken that his demon-killing poison was blocked with a single hand. This toxin is designed to blind and deafen on contact. Tang Yun Myung holds up 2 fingers in a calm display of power, forcing the elder to realize the young man's internal strength might exceed his own decades of cultivation. Enraged by the perceived mockery, the elder unleashes a blinding burst of energy to end the fight. Tang Yun Myung reaches into his robes to reveal a red cylinder, ignoring the incoming attack. The elder immediately halts his strike, his eyes wide as they reflect the object he just recognized. Tang Yun Myung holds out the gold-patterned cylinder, prompting the elder to demand how he obtained it. He casually opens his gloved hand, releasing his grip on a small object. A red cylinder marked with gold patterns tumbles through the air, falling as Tang Yun Myung reveals that the very poison the elder handed to his granddaughter actually came from his own hand. The container shatters against the cracked earth, spilling a glowing golden liquid that ignites into flames and forces the white-haired elder to reel back. A massive explosion of golden fire surges outward, leaving the instructors to stare at the blast as Tang Yun Myung notes that a simple poison bottle would never cause such a reaction. Tang Yun Myung seizes the white-haired elder by the collar and accuses him of wielding one of the Tang family's most restricted poisons. Embers flare from the spilled liquid as the crowd realizes the lethality of what was just used. Tang Yun Myung demands an identification from the black-capped instructor, who confirms it is the legendary fire dragon's poison. The white-haired elder breaks into a sweat while the witnesses point out that he is the man responsible for managing the poison storage. Tang Yun Myung refuses to let such a weapon be squandered on personal greed and threatens to involve the burial brigade. He turns his focus to the jars of venom, citing his knowledge that these poisons are far too dangerous to be handled with such negligence. Tang Yun Myung warns that these poisons are lethal enough to challenge the realm's greatest warriors, their value rising now that the recipes are lost. He reveals a massive sealed container, claiming the contents are worth more to the Tang family than any treasure. While the white-haired elder looks on darkly, the top-knot elder demands an explanation, as Yun Myung declares that using the poison for personal gain warrants severe punishment. A purple aura begins to crush the white-haired elder, who realizes his title cannot shield him from the clan's laws. Yun Myung ignites the air and engulfs the man in a roaring fire, promising him a reunion with his granddaughter in the afterlife. The other clan members watch in horror as the elder is reduced to a burning skull. With one traitor dead, Yun Myung turns his judgment toward the rest of the corrupt leadership. Grand Elder Tang Sok-jung screams in agony as flames consume him, demanding to know who would dare judge the family's leadership. Tang Yun Myung stands resolute within the inferno, clenching his fist as he declares that he will be the one to decide his own path. A nearby elder glares with fury, demanding the guards seize the man who murdered a clan senior. Yun Jungyuk speaks from the shadows, looming over Sok-jung to ask if the elder understands the danger his disciple has brought upon them all. Tang Sok-jung reels as Yun Jungyuk questions how he could be so blind to the truth. The accusation hits home when Jung Yuk reveals that the elder's own disciple was a spy for the Dark Moon Sword Sect. Tang Yunmyung remains composed while reminding the elders of the recent invasion, but the top-knot elder explodes in fury, demanding proof of such a treasonous claim. A bloodied participant steps forward to answer, and Yunmyung identifies him as the vice director's son. Gripping his torn robes, the young man declares himself the only witness who can prove the betrayal. He strips away his clothing to reveal a torso covered in jagged scars, testifying that he received these wounds from Tang Gukrin. During their fight, Ukrin abandoned the clan's poison arts to strike with the lethal sword techniques of their enemies. The top-knot elder challenges the current theory, arguing that the technique used wasn't a standard double sword style. Grand Elder Tang Sokjung remains skeptical until the elder insists he has witnessed the Mak family's sword style in person. The Grand Elder is shaken when the top-knot elder explains that the wounds on the survivors match the specific style used against Tang Yenmyung. The bloodied participant roars his confirmation to the crowd, revealing that the assassin confessed to being a spy named Mak In-yuk. Grand Elder Tang Sokjung stands in silence as the clan members whisper about the name, identifying him as a discarded bastard born to a maid. Tang Yanmyung approaches the witness, acknowledging that while he intended to use his testimony, he is surprised the man stepped forward so boldly. The injured participant pledges to repay his life debt, a vow Tang Yanmyung accepts to solidify his position. Grand Elder Tang Sokjung reels from the revelation that Gukrin was a spy, realizing he must act immediately to save himself. He lunges forward in a panic, screaming for Elder Junryong to intercept the threat. The masked guards hesitate as Seokjung demands they seek vengeance for their fallen comrade, their resolve wavering. Yeonmyung cuts through the elder's frantic shouting, ordering him to maintain his composure. Tang Yeonmyung strides through the courtyard as the other elders watch his approach, eventually cornering Seokjung and calling his desperate behavior an embarrassment to their lineage. Seokjung tries to deny any involvement, but Yeonmyung stares him down, questioning if the Grand Elder believes his status will shield him from the consequences. He fixes the elder with a glowing glare, calling him careless. Tang Sokjung shouts for him to wait, but a blade of green energy strikes the ground inches from him, leaving him paralyzed with terror. Yeonmyung looms over the cowering man with his hand wreathed in power. He declares that while harboring a spy usually warrants the destruction of one's martial arts, he will show mercy due to a lack of evidence, forcing the elder to bow in submission. The white-haired elder stares in shock, stunned by a speed he could not track and wondering if Tang Yeonmyung is secretly a master of the sword. His terror shifts to a cunning edge as he reveals a hidden vial, having used the cover of treating his wounds to extract a lethal toxin. This is the dreaded formless poison, a substance that leaves its victims coughing up blood before they even realize they have been exposed. The elder crushes the vial to release a swirling white aura, then unleashes the mist toward Tang Yeonmyung's back while boasting that no warrior can survive a poison he spent half a lifetime perfecting. Tang Yeonmyung remains calm, looking down with indifference as the deadly cloud begins to engulf him. Grand Elder Tang Sokjung narrows his eyes with lethal intent, vowing to eliminate Tang Yeonmyung so swiftly he won't even realize death has arrived. In the center of the Tang clan training courtyard, Grand Elder Tang Sokjung unleashes a white poison wind that sweeps across the arena toward Tang Yeonmyung. Tang Yeonmyung remains unmoved, his eyes snapping into focus through the rushing mist as he tracks the incoming attack. Seeing his target unharmed, Seokjung raises a defensive arm in shock, while Yeonmyung dryly mocks the elder for resorting to such tricks. Panic sets in as Seokjung realizes his poison has failed, and he is suddenly thrown back by a spray of blood. Wounded and bloodied, Seokjung screams at Yeonmyung in front of the gathered clan, accusing him of hypocrisy for challenging the elders while simultaneously claiming the right to lead the family. The elders are stunned, struggling to process the chaos. On the ground lies the Grand Elder's severed hand, next to a spilled bottle of poison, smoking as the crowd realizes the truth. Yeonmyung ignores the plea and gathers swirling green energy in his palm, declaring that attempting to assassinate the clan leader is an act of treason. He swings his arm with force, unleashing the energy to deliver a final judgment. Seokjung collapses to the ground, broken and bleeding as Yeonmyung looms over him. The battle ends with Yeonmyung standing victorious in the courtyard, his authority over the Tang clan absolute. Grand Elder Tang Seokjung and the other elders sweat in shock as Tang Yeonmyung declares that no one is above the laws of the Tang family. vowing to execute justice personally if they ever abuse their positions again. As the surrounding clan members watch in awe, he acknowledges that their family has declined to the point where collapse is imminent. He promises the listening instructors that he will shield every member from the threats of demonic cults so they can finally live in peace within Sichuan. Looking down with a commanding gaze, Yun Young demands that everyone present acknowledge him as the rightful head of the Tang family. Later that night at her residence, Tang Jihei is left reeling as she questions the weight of his claims. The servant wipes away tears of joy, explaining that his victory in the family head contest is only part of the story. She describes the scene where the elders were forced to acknowledge his power, leading the members of the Stealth and Poisons Hall to bow in submission. The clan members look toward the sky with relief, while Tang Yunmyung stands tall as their leader. Jihei listens with a moved expression, hearing how her son has grown to resemble her younger self. She laments that Longriang cannot share in this triumph and asks the servant to tell the story again. Tang Yunmyung accepts his new burden as family head, reflecting on his mother while realizing the mountain of administrative work waiting for him. A gray-haired official reports that the Stealth and Poisons Hall is now under his direct command, requiring his personal approval for every major move. This consolidation of power visibly irritates the elders, who used to hold sway. Sensing an opening, Elder O suggests that Yunmyung is too inexperienced to lead alone, and offers to act as a regent. Yunmyung remains calm, fully aware that this suggestion is nothing more than a blatant power grab. Elder O watches in shock as Tang Yunmyung dismisses the idea of a regency and moves to finalize the transfer of power. The investigation into the third elder confirms the smuggling of Fire Dragon's poison, and as the masked guards inspect the toxins, they realize the Elder Council's authority over the clan's 10 poisons has been revoked. Yunmyung then strikes their wallets, reading a decree that the elders must now pay for their own troops out of their personal funds. He absorbs the leaderless direct command and sovereign spirit troops into a new shadow troop, placing them under his direct supervision. These masked guards are assigned to external defense, their salaries slashed to match the common guard rank. Tang Yunmyung strips the new guards of their former privileges, ordering them to fulfill their duties or face dismissal. He warns that any friction with his external warriors will lead to severe punishment, leaving the masked guards trembling. Across the Tang clan estate, Yunmyung receives a formal bow from his officials, before turning to Elder O. The elder breaks into a sweat, realizing Yunmyung has dismantled the power of the Elder Council through force and legitimacy. As Yunmyung remains stoic, Elder O panics over the secret fraud committed during the contest, knowing that one wrong word will lead to his death. Yunmyung finally addresses the room, noting that his recent business has kept him from them for too long. Tang Yunmyung addresses the room with a calm authority, asking for a specific favor, as the brown-haired elder realizes he is facing the legendary number 28. Noticing the elder's shock, Yunmyung asks if his new attire is the cause, explaining that his subordinates insisted he dress for his current standing. He takes a seat with his back to the room, forcing the elder to acknowledge that Yunmyung already controls the Tang family. The elder nervously asks for the details of the request, prompting Yeonmyung to bring up the Jagal family's renowned defensive formations. He describes the power of these barriers to trap unwanted guests indefinitely, then casually demands that the same formation be installed at the Tang estate to ward off the evil sects. The brown-haired elder frantically lists excuses about family treasures and clan permissions, but Yunmyung simply draws his blade. In a flash of green light, he unleashes a flurry of strikes that tear through the elder. Tang Yunmyung questions the Jagal family elder about the formation. Catching the man off guard, the elder tumbles backward as a sudden force drives him to the ground, stopping only when a glowing green needle halts inches from his eye. His pupil shakes while Yunmyung reveals he knows about the secret pact with Tang Yanggryong. He looms over the elder for choosing to let the sect invasion proceed, watching the man sweat as his treachery is fully exposed. Yunmyung manipulates the jade energy in his palm and orders the man to build a defense formation in the Tang inner quarters. The elder tries to stammer an excuse, but Yunmyung silences him by asking if his order sounds like a suggestion. The elder breaks into a cold sweat as Tang Yunmyung reminds him of the Tang family's reputation for brutality. With eyes glowing green, Yunmyung explains that his clan returns every grudge tenfold, revealing that he personally executed the previous elders for their failures. As the elder trembles, Yunmyung threatens to take his wrath directly to the Jedal family. The elder envisions his entire compound consumed by fire, while Yunmyung promises to hold Yugol Changxin accountable for the incident. Yunmyung begins a cold countdown, starting with 1, Before he can even reach 2, the elder screams his compliance and begs for mercy. His hands shake under Yeonmyung's steady gaze. The elder breaks, weeping as he begs for his family's lives. Tang Yeonmyung accepts the surrender with a cold smile, and his eyes glow with a warning to move quickly on their arrangement. Tang Yeonmyung gathers his inner circle at the Tang clan estate. He meets with the short-haired woman and the bowl-cut boy, explaining that the transition of power delayed their meeting. The short-haired woman asks for the purpose of their summons. Yeonmyung reacts with surprise when she addresses him formally as the family head. He laughs and tells them to drop the formal titles when they are alone, which the pink bun girl asks to confirm. The bowl-cut boy immediately kicks his feet up on the table while the women relax, leaving Yeonmyung annoyed at how fast they drop their respect. Yori sprawls across the table, demanding to know why the new head of the Tang clan summoned them to this meeting. Tang Yeonmyung reveals he just appointed Yori's father as the chief officer, catching the entire room off guard. He urges her to make the most of this sudden promotion. While Yori marvels at the authority of his new position, she wonders how he handled the inevitable opposition, but Yeonmyung claims he crushed any internal resistance without much effort. His tone shifts as he warns that any abuse of power or neglect of duty will not be tolerated, prompting Yori to fiercely defend her father's integrity. Satisfied, Yeonmyung instructs her to help her father adjust to his new responsibilities, earning a look of gratitude from her. When he suggests the man just needs to prove his worth, Yori panics at the thought of her father becoming obsessively loyal to the clan, though Yeonmyung tells her she is overthinking it. With that matter settled, he turns his attention to the quiet Miryo and young Ijin, demanding an update on their current situation. Our MC makes his intentions clear, declaring his plan to recruit talented individuals who have been cast aside due to a lack of connections. He reasons that keeping those tied to the elders close is a risk, though Miryo, a fellow trainee, admits she has no one to recommend. Turning his attention to Ijin, a boy with ties to the Medicine King Hall, our MC asks for insight into the organization and notices the boy's sudden hesitation. Ijin clenches his bandaged fists against the table, preparing to speak on a matter he has kept hidden until now. He finally speaks, warning our MC that the information he carries involves him directly. Our MC is stunned as Ijin specifies that this secret concerns the fate of his father. As a flashback shows a shadowy figure watching the poisoned father cough up blood, Ijin reveals that the Medicine King Hall was the group responsible for the poisoning. Miryo stammers in disbelief, certain that Ijin must have misheard the name of the Medicine King Hall. Yori slams her hands onto the table with enough force to shatter the wood, swearing to split the heads of those who dared touch the family head's kin. Yeonmyung ignores the outburst, his gaze fixed on Ijin as he demands the rest of the explanation. The Medicine King Hall is a secluded fortress within the main house, sitting entirely outside the reach of the Elder Council. It operates as the family's financial engine, funding their operations through the study of medicine and the sale of toxic materials. Ijin explains that the hall's robustness is the reason the Tang family survived the Heaven's Brilliance Demon Lord incident, then reveals that his own grandfather was once its leader. Miryo recalls the old man's eventual dismissal, but Ijin shifts the focus to Tang Longriang, who visited his grandfather every single day. After the Demon Lord's invasion, Tang Longriang became the hall's fiercest protector, physically confronting anyone who dared to slander the Medicine King's name. Since our boy's father was a scholar with no martial arts training, the physical toll of a simple argument turned violent was devastating. Without internal strength to dissipate the energy of a strike, he suffered deep internal injuries that left him coughing up blood. Ijin looks down somberly, noting that the situation reached a breaking point. Tang Il, the vice leader of the Medicine King Hall, was at the center of the dispute. Tang Il had been caught spreading vile rumors about Yeonmyung's mother, but rather than apologize when confronted, he attempted to strike the defenseless scholar with martial arts, only stopping when Ijin's grandfather stepped in to bar his path. This act of cowardice stripped Tang Il of his candidacy for leadership. Yeonmyung looks up with a sharp gaze, questioning if the man poisoned his father as an act of revenge. Ijin recounts the bloody purge of the Medicine King Hall, where the vice leader murdered his father before poisoning and imprisoning his grandfather. Miryo reacts with outrage, demanding to know how such a crime remained hidden for so long. Because the poison left his grandfather incoherent, Ijin explains that no one was willing to step forward and help him. The memory of his grandfather's state breaks him, and he admits he is too terrified to face the old man. Miryo apologizes to Yeonmyung, believing the hall is too far gone to provide the talent he seeks. Yeonmyung looks at the emaciated old man in his cell and wonders why the vice leader would leave such a witness alive. Ijeon listens in silence as Yeonmyeong suspects the existence of a secret division within the hall that remains hidden from the elders. The legend begins with the 10,000-year fire carp, a mythical beast born from the depths of molten lava. Its inner pill now rests within an ornate wooden box, a prize of great value. The girls are stunned, questioning if such a fabled object actually exists. While the woman dismisses it as a simple strength booster, our protagonist warns that the pill's nature is more complex. A century ago, the Lesser Lord of the Fiery Sun Palace used this very artifact to reach a legendary realm of fire energy, before her sect was erased by the heavenly demon. Our protagonist explains that while the stories might seem like exaggerations, the power it grants is a matter of historical record. However, the pill is as lethal as it is powerful, constantly emitting a toxic smoke that can kill the unprepared. Yeonmyeong questions Ijeon on whether the inner pill can even be used if his grandfather isn't there to neutralize the poison. Ijeon confirms that Tang-il plans to consume the pill to force his way into the fire realm, intending to then desert the Tang family and establish his own sect. Yeonmyeong recognizes this as a full-scale rebellion, noting that Tang-il is a fool for seeking power without the enlightenment required to wield it. He turns his gaze toward Ijeon, realizing the boy has spent 3 years masking this deep pain with a fake smile. Yeonmyeong asks if the Medicine King Hall can be restored to its original purpose if they purge the traitors and heal the former leader. He promises to handle the poisoning himself and tells Ijeon to make his decision. Ijeon clenches his bandaged fists, certain that his plan can work. He looks up with confidence, asserting that he is just as capable as the current leader and can personally train any new medical recruits. Yeonmyeong smiles, satisfied with this answer. He asks Mirio to postpone the rest of her report until they handle the Medicine King Hall, and she calmly agrees. Yeonmyeong stands to leave immediately, though Ijeon asks if he should visit his mother before they depart. Grabbing the door, Yeonmyeong explains that his mother would understand his duty to stop a conspirator. Ijeon is moved to tears when Yeonmyeong admits he cannot ignore the suffering of a friend. Looking back with a fierce expression, Yeonmyeong vows to dismantle the Medicine King Hall and purge its current influence from the family. Empty. High above the Medicine King Hall, the heavy wooden gates stand shut. He looks at a glowing red inner pill resting in a box, confident that the new head is oblivious to the role he played in his father's fate. The master finds Tang Ijeon's disappearance concerning, given her loyalty to her grandfather, but he smiles with the certainty that her survival comes before everything else. Looking down at the pill on his desk, he realizes that while killing her is easy, his true challenge lies in extracting the energy to finally reach the fire realm. While the Tang clan chief searches for a solution to his problems, a subordinate bursts into the room with a panicked cry. The chief demands silence, and his anger turns to shock when he learns Tang Yeonmyeong is responsible for the commotion. In the courtyard, the Tang clan guards begin subduing the clan members, pinning them to the ground and ordering that no one be allowed to escape. Tang Yeonmyeong marches through the chaos as the subordinate reports that he is rampaging through the main hall. He moves with purpose, ignoring the surrounding noise. Yeonmyeong looks to Ijeon for an update on the search, but the news is grim. Ijeon cries out in desperation, reporting that he has searched the entire Medicine King Hall without finding a single trace of his grandfather. Yeonmyeong turns his fury on the captured Tang clan members, demanding they reveal where the old man is hidden. The prisoners sweat and glance away, feigning ignorance even as Yeonmyeong stares them down with cold impatience. Realizing they won't talk willingly, Yeonmyeong calls for Won-jin, who draws his weapon with lethal speed. Won-jin lashes out with a barrage of rapid strikes, forcing the terrified clan members to flinch as Yeonmyeong warns them that their shifty eyes have already betrayed their lies. Yeonmyeong stares down with a cold expression, telling the captives to stop pretending since he only needs one mouth to talk. They stand before the gate of Noeak, a cavern where the current leader has imprisoned the former head of the family. Ijeon is horrified to learn his grandfather is trapped in such a place. Yeonmyeong turns his back on the captives and orders the Bongwi Brigade to execute the remaining prisoners and wait at the entrance while he and Ijeon head inside. The Tang clan members beg for their lives as the brigade draws their steel and Yeonmyeong and Ijeon walk into the dark entrance, ruthlessly cutting down the survivors as blood splatters the stone while they disappear into the depths. Descending the steep, web-covered path, Yeonmyeong notes the oppressive depth of the cave and deems its name fitting. Ijeon rushes down the rocky path, with Yeonmyeong close behind, shouting that they are nearly there. They stop at the entrance of the Noeak cave, a dark and forbidding place. Ijeon clenches his teeth as tears well up, terrified that they might have arrived too late. Yeonmyeong looks down to reassure the boy, promising that his grandfather is still alive. Green energy surges from Yeonmyeong's eyes and flows down the corridor as he senses a presence deep within the prison. A pained scream echoes from a dark cell. Ijeon grips the iron bars and calls out to the emaciated grandfather, the boy's imprisoned relative, lying on the floor. Yeonmyeong tells Ijeon to step back as he prepares to break the cell open with a surge of energy. Yeonmyeong shatters the iron bars of the prison cell with a surge of energy. Inside, Ijeon's grandfather lies on the floor in agony as the boy cries out in terror. Ijeon rushes to the old man's side, weeping as he realizes his grandfather was hit with mountain-subduing poison. Yeonmyeong places a hand on the boy's shoulder to steady him, asking for the specific details of the toxins used. This toxin targets the brain to turn the poisoned man into a mindless shell, spreading so thoroughly that typical antidotes fail to work. While Ijeon insists there is no way to reverse the damage, Yeonmyeong claims the fix will be easy. Yeonmyeong offers a slight smile, leaving Ijeon stunned by his certainty. Yeonmyeong presses his palm against the grandfather's chest and tells Ijeon to hold the old man steady. Green energy swirls around his arm as he channels his power into the patient, manifesting the poison-devouring frenzy as a spectral green skull that looms over the room. The technique flares with light as it enters the absorption phase, unhinging its jaws to violently pull the toxic streams out of the grandfather. The old man's hand twitches involuntarily as the poison is forced from his system. Ijeon stares in shock at the visible changes taking hold of his grandfather. Ijeon watches in relief as her grandfather's breathing stabilizes and the color returns to his face. A skull of toxic green energy is forced from his body, dissipating into the air. Yeonmyeong smiles, confident the poison has been purged. As the old man rests peacefully, Yeonmyeong commands him to wake up. He recognizes Ijeon immediately as she leans over him with tears of joy, but his gaze shifts to the side, his eyes widening with shock. Staring at Yeonmyeong, he asks if Longriang has finally returned. Inside the cell, our MC confirms his identity as the son of Longriang, and the new family head to Ijeon, and the old man who once protected his father. The grandfather breaks into tears, struck by the fate of being saved by the son of the man he failed. He envisions Longriang smiling from the heavens, wishing his friend could see the man his son has become. The grandfather asks if he may still be allowed to serve the family, and our MC grants the request while removing his green outer robe. He drapes the garment over the old man's shoulders, promising to find new positions for both him and Ijeon. As they walk out, Ijeon warns the old man not to overexert himself, while the Tang clan chief watches in disbelief as the prisoner stands firm in the family head's robe. The Tang clan chief shouts a desperate accusation at number 28 for daring to strike the Medicine King Hall, arguing that the organization is the only thing funding the Tang family's survival. Number 28 stares him down with cold indifference, causing the chief to flinch when he realizes his excuses aren't working. Number 28 asks if those are his final words, and the chief freezes as he realizes he is out of time. Before delivering the killing blow, Number 28 turns to the emaciated grandfather to ask for any final requests. The old man turns his head away in silent condemnation, sealing the chief's fate. Overcome by fear, the Tang clan chief shoves his own subordinates out of the way and flees the courtyard to save his own life. The Tang clan chief curses in frustration, unable to comprehend how his enemy managed to reach him. His anger turns to terror as his body freezes and he discovers a single needle buried in his neck. Yeonmyeong stands over him, identifying the toxin as heart-severing flame poison, a masterpiece crafted by Ijeon. The chief collapses into the dirt, unresponsive and drooling as his consciousness fades. As the remaining Tang clan members scatter in a desperate attempt to flee, Yeonmyeong turns his attention to the survivors. He calls out to the Bangui Brigade, who respond with immediate, lethal obedience. Walking away with his grandfather and Ijeon, Yeonmyeong gives the final command to erase the Medicine King Hall from existence as his men begin the slaughter. The fall of the Medicine King Hall sends shockwaves through the streets as the townsfolk gossip about the recent massacre. Many fear that by destroying the hall, the Tang clan has just executed the very source of their wealth and survival. Away from the panic, a volatile orb of fire and stone sits on a pedestal while the old pharmacist asks if the boy is truly ready to take it. He chooses to take the artifact exactly as it is, dismissing the old man's concerns by declaring he will put the orb to use immediately. Morning light breaks over the Tang clan estate as the family begins to navigate the fallout of the hall's collapse. Yeonmyeong stares at the fiery orb, noting that its poison is potent enough to be seen with the naked eye. He dismisses the danger and grabs the artifact with his bare hand, calmly analyzing the intensity of the heat. As he grips the orb, flames begin to erupt from his palm. A massive dragon of fire roars into existence, but Yeonmyeong remains unimpressed, finding the beast weak compared to the demonic fire dragon of his past. He recognizes that this unrefined power would incinerate an ordinary man from the inside. Intrigued by the possibility that it was forged from a dragon's breath, he resolves to uncover the secrets of the 10 poisons. Tang Yeonmyeong examines the refined spirit orb, noting the immense power it now holds. He rests his hand on the box with satisfaction. His work. Finally. He makes his way to his mother's room and knocks, asking Tang Jihae for permission to enter. She welcomes him inside, and he slides the door open to join her. Jihae smiles at him, confessing she had lost hope of ever returning to these quarters. Standing in her restored home, she tells him how lucky she feels to have him as a son. Yeonmyeong returns the smile, insisting that she is simply back where she has always belonged. Tang Yeonmyeong watches Tang Jihae, noticing the signs of age on her face even as she smiles. He recognizes the heavy toll his absence took on her, but she pulls him into a tight embrace, grateful that he returned safely. Yeonmyeong reassures her with a smile, promising to stay by her side. This warmth reminds him of his past life, which ended in nothing but regret. He recalls the isolation of his previous journey, where he reached the end with no one to share his happiness. He clenches his fist with a new resolve, swearing to protect this life so he never has to feel that loneliness again. Tang Yeonmyeong holds out a decorative wooden box, telling a surprised Tang Jihae that he brought a gift specifically for her. As he opens the lid, Jihae gasps at the glowing red orb revealed inside. She recognizes it as an inner pill from the 10,000-year fire carp, but despite her shock, Yeonmyeong tells her she is the one who must use it. Jihae tries to refuse, arguing that he should keep it to strengthen his position as the future clan leader, but Yeonmyeong merely asks for her hand while dismissing the idea. Jihae remains confused as he takes her hand, only for a massive wave of energy to erupt around her, as Yeonmyeong begins a power transfer, explaining that his own cultivation has already surpassed the benefits the orb could provide. Tang Jihae reels as she realizes her son has ascended to the fire realm. Tang Yeonmyeong remains calm, confirming the achievement that his mother finds nearly impossible to believe. Her pride is tempered by dread, fearing that rival families will target the Tangs if they learn of his growth. Yeonmyeong dismisses her fears, insisting that she must live a long life to represent both herself and his late father. He presents the glowing inner pill and asks her to stay by his side as he continues to rise. Jihae clenches her fist to steady her heart, as Yeonmyeong warns her that the pill's energy is already beginning to dissipate. With the pill in hand, she catches Yeonmyeong off guard by asking if he knows the title she held during her own youth. Tang Jihae reveals her past identity as the Poison Phoenix, a title once held by the most renowned beauty in Sichuan. A surge of energy erupts from her as she prepares the pill, leaving Tang Yeonmyeong stunned by the realization that his mother was once a legendary figure within the clan. Jihae notices his astonishment, with a fond smile playfully asking if he finds her hidden strength impressive. The residence remains still as Jihae begins cultivating the energy from the inner pill, while Yeonmyeong stands guard. Yeonmyeong remains deep in thought, still trying to reconcile the mother he knew with the powerful master now sitting before him. Tang Jihae sits in deep cultivation, her energy rising in a visible aura that catches Tang Yeonmyeong off guard. He knows that a Fire Realm master can detect even the smallest movements, which usually makes hiding this level of power impossible. Tang Yeonmyeong smiles, impressed that his mother kept her true strength hidden from him despite his own mastery. Her aura flares as she reaches her peak, beginning to absorb the spirituality of the inner pill. Tang Yeonmyeong watches her closely, realizing that if she overcomes her limits, she will soon face a dangerous problem. A burst of heat flares from her body, followed by a brilliant blue light as she begins the simple process of internalizing the pill's power. Tang Jihae begins drawing the massive spiritual energy of the inner pill into her own body, focusing her mind to ground the power within her. She quickly starts to doubt her capacity to hold such a vast amount, especially as the pill's essence begins to bleed out into the void. Jihae realizes she cannot match the rate of dissipation and fears the energy will be lost before she can claim even half of it. A glowing blue hand suddenly cuts through the spiritual space and grips her shoulder, leaving Jihae stunned as she recognizes the touch of Tang Yeonmyeong. Tang Yunmyung places his hand on Tang Jihei's shoulder as she strains, warning her that enlightenment requires more than just deep thought. He advises her to observe and imitate the world around her to find an opportunity for a breakthrough. To speed her progress, Yunmyung manifests a hand of glowing energy to give her a direct push. Jihei is stunned as the massive wave of power washes over her, recognizing the Tang family's Azure Radiant Heart technique as it fuses with her inner pill. The contact triggers a sudden realization, and she smiles as she masters the flow, understanding that this pure energy can be absorbed all at once. Tang Jihei realizes she can bypass the standard cultivation process by reshaping the energy into a familiar form. She draws the massive glowing sphere back into herself, grateful for the support her son provided. Tang Yunmyung keeps his hands steady while the energy circulates, smirking as he confirms the process is complete. He stands up and brushes off his hands, confident that his mother has reached the Fire Realm. Members of the Tang clan assemble within the Stealth and Poisons Hall for a mandatory meeting. Tang Jiyuk grumbles to Tang Jokui about being summoned so early in the morning despite their busy schedules. Inside the meeting hall, an elder grumbles about the clan head's lack of punctuality. He considers the delay a personal insult to those gathered, while the white-haired man attempts to ease the tension. A sudden announcement cuts through the room, drawing everyone's attention toward the entrance. Tang Yanmyang strides in, thanking the elders for their early arrival, before beginning an urgent briefing. When the elder questions the meeting's purpose, Tang Yunmyang brings up their previous demand for a proxy head to lead until he reaches adulthood. The elders expect one of their own to be named, but Tang Yunmyang challenges the assumption that he would choose from their ranks. The elder reacts with indignation, demanding to know who else could possibly qualify for the position. A mysterious figure steps through the entrance, and the guards drop into a respectful bow. The councilman and the pink-haired elder turn toward the entrance in confusion, as the councilman stares in disbelief at the figure standing before them. Tang Jihei maintains a calm, imposing presence. Tang Yunmyung smiles at the shock, nominating her as the perfect fit for the position. Though this council forced her to step down after the Maguangqian invasion 10 years ago, Tang Jihei simply notes how many familiar faces are still in the room. She has finally decided to move again, looming over the blonde woman as she reclaims her place in the hall. Tang Jihei formally introduces herself to the room, offering an apology for her late arrival. That night, she exhales in the heat of a bath, contemplating her successful ascension to the Fire Realm. The process has purged foul impurities from her system, leaving her embarrassed as the servants react to the smell. She manifests a glow of power in her hand, acknowledging that she is yet to master this level of strength. Her own growth provides a new clarity regarding Tang Yunmyang, as she realizes her son has already reached the highest state of the Fire Realm. She considers the weight of that power, noting that the only other master at this level is the leader of the Black Death Alliance. Tang Jihei looks forward to finally catching up with her son, and when Tang Yunmyang arrives to congratulate her on reaching the Fire Realm, she warmly invites him to sit. Once settled, Jihei asks how he managed to reach such a high state of cultivation at his age. Yunmyang internally scrambles for a believable excuse to hide the truth of his past life, deciding to use the events of the competition as his cover story. He casually admits to drinking the fire dragon's poison, leaving his mother in shock as he awkwardly tries to reassure her that he survived the ordeal. Jihei can only watch in horror as her son explains how he turned a lethal poison into a path for his enlightenment. He immediately changes the subject, bringing up a rumor he overheard from the servants during his bath. Deciding that honesty is the best path since it involves his father, Yunmyang asks her directly about the plan to dismantle the Medicine King Hall. He confirms her suspicions with a steady look, leaving the two of them in a tense silence across the table, her anger flaring as her suspicions are finally validated. Tang Jihei considers the weight of the situation, realizing that even Ijan must have suffered through these trials. She turns to Tang Yunmyang with a serious request, catching his full attention. Admitting she spent years hiding in fear of losing her son after her husband's death, Jihei clenches her fist and declares she will no longer remain passive. She vows to protect Yunmyang's rightful place from anyone who dares to challenge him. Leaving her son moved by her resolve, Jihei steps into the assembly hall, prompting stunned whispers from the crowd as they recognize the poison phoenix. She takes a purposeful step forward, leaving her kin in the crowd stunned and overjoyed by her return. Standing before the gathered clan, Yunmyang formally presents his mother as the new head of the Tang family. Shock ripples through the assembly as the truth comes to light. The crowned elder breaks into a cold sweat, realizing they are facing the actual head of the family instead of a proxy. Tang Jihye takes command, announcing she is the acting head until the true successor comes of age. She ignores the terrified looks of the elders and promises to restore the foundation of the Tang family. The meeting marks the start of a radical era as she renames and restructures the collapsing Medicine King Hall. Tang Hoyol and Tang Ijon assume their new roles as the Surgeon General and his deputy. Yori's father completes the purge by uncovering the elders' hidden ledgers and a hoard of embezzled gold, securing the clan's finances for the foreseeable future. Tang Jaehyuk is officially stripped of his title as head of the Stealth and Poisons Hall, as the family begins a massive sweep to oust every elder caught embezzling from the treasury. Tang Jihye takes full command of the purge, decreeing that anyone who abused their authority for personal gain is finished, regardless of their rank. Watching the transition, Tang Yunmyung is struck by his mother's efficiency, marveling at how quickly she stabilized the clan. He looks out toward the distant mountains and scans the sprawling estate below, acknowledging that his mother has finally solved the family's internal rot. As he reflects on the peace she has won, he realizes his own life is about to change along with the clan. Tang Yunmyung considers the allies and guards who have placed their trust in him, including the purple-haired woman, and the hundreds of clan members who now stand united under his name. He smiles as he realizes the weight of everything he must now protect. This life is a shift from his past, where he spent his days collapsed on the ground and resentful of his own birth. Looking toward the horizon, he vows to reach a level of strength where no one would ever dare covet his family's power. He won't let the Black Death Alliance or Yun Jungyuk threaten his people ever again. But as his resolve hardens, news of the Tang clan's new leadership begins to ripple through the world. Yu Kiljun considers the vacant leadership of the Tang clan, knowing they cannot leave the position empty forever. Yo Seo Rian, leader of the Transforming Heart sect, approaches his throne to report that Mak Inhu was defeated by the Tang head. She reminds him that the warrior was renowned for his strength and urges him to eliminate the clan before they can restore their reputation. Yu Kiljun questions why he should even bother, catching her off guard. When she suggests that Mak Inhu's defeat is a challenge to his power, he grips his throne and asks if she has forgotten his earlier warning. He demands she leave the Tang clan alone, revealing that he intends to use them for his own purposes later. Yu Kiljun considers the warrior's death a relief, as returning in failure would have only earned the man a severe punishment. He rests his chin on his hand, intrigued that someone managed to kill a fighter of that caliber. Gesturing toward Yo Seo Rian and the conical hat guards, he orders a letter sent to the Tang clan regarding the upcoming Sichuan meeting. He grins while making it clear that the head of the clan must be the one invited. Tang Jihye thanks Yunmyung for managing the internal arrangements while they share tea. She admits to feeling nervous about stepping back into leadership and wonders if she met expectations. Yunmyung confirms she did a great job, but his focus shifts as he senses something off. Although the concealment is flawless, Yunmyung questions why she still hides her strength after reaching the Fire Realm. Jihye insists that Yunmyung must learn the technique to mask his own abilities, leaving him confused. Tang Jihye explains that the history of the Tang family founder is a long story, but one that must be told. She starts with the image of the ancestor as a young child, standing alone in a courtyard littered with the dead. A devastating plague had struck a village in Sichuan, causing the people to waste away and cough blood. Victims were burned without ceremony to stop the sickness, leaving the rest of the village to wait for their own end. Amidst the dying, the 10-year-old boy remained the only person untouched by the disease, drawing the shocked stares of the survivors. No one could explain why he was spared while everyone else around him withered. The boy radiated a dark energy that forced the terrified villagers to cower, viewing him as a harbinger of the plague or a child possessed by an evil spirit. Cast out from his village, our protagonist huddles in a dark cave to escape the rain, surviving by scavenging sacrificial food left at a shrine to ward off the plague. When the villagers stop their rituals, he finds himself standing alone among the bodies of those claimed by the sickness. He wonders why he alone remains unharmed, until a sudden presence startles him. A group of men in conical hats surrounds him, led by the stitched-face assassin who declares that they have finally found him. The man studies our protagonist with a grin, recognizing his inherent talent for poison. This is the poisonous Moon Shadow Sect, the most feared assassination group in the history of the Murim. The Poison Sect builds its army by kidnapping children and stripping away their humanity. They force-feed each recruit a lethal poison, ensuring obedience through a cycle of addiction and temporary antidotes. The white-haired assassin survives long enough to see his comrades die in agony when their medicine is withheld. He realizes that the plague which wiped out his home was a calculated strike by the very sect he now serves. Driven by a need for vengeance, he hones his lethality until he is a blur of motion in the courtyard. He takes on the most desperate missions, strangling his targets with wire, and eventually grows strong enough to strike down even the most legendary masters. The leader of the Death Alliance sits upon his throne, commending the white-haired assassin for single-handedly elevating the sect's reputation. To honor this success, the leader promotes him to the elite rank of the 5 great assassins and offers to grant him any reward he can name. The white-haired assassin claims he wants nothing, a response that leaves the leader stunned. With his red eyes burning, he insists he has no need for gifts or gold. His focus remains elsewhere as an ominous shadow falls over the distant mountains. Having already achieved a terrifying level of mastery, our boy tears through a crowd of enemies with a massive whirlwind of slashes. Drawing on the knowledge of great masters in his own sect's martial arts, the white-haired assassin unleashes his ultimate technique. Known as the first flower rain of the sky, the strike marks the end of the poisonous moon shadow sect. He stands victorious atop a massive mound of his fallen enemies, the sole survivor of the massacre. By the time the sun rises, the rival sect has vanished entirely, leaving only blood behind. Tang Jihye explains that this ancestor's descendants eventually settled in Sichuan to form the Tang family, where the world still remembers him as the invisible guest. She stops her story when she realizes young Yunmyung has fallen fast asleep while she was speaking. Irritated by his indifference, she pinches the boy's cheek to snap him back to reality. Young Yunyun clears his throat, trying to mask his embarrassment after nearly falling asleep during the history lesson. He asks how this story relates to the vein-sealing concealment, prompting Tang Jihye to explain how the invisible guest once survived an onslaught from the poison sect's elite assassins. Yunyun assumes the victory came from the flower rain of the sky technique, but Jihye clarifies that the art has nothing to do with throwing hidden weapons. She reveals that the technique is actually a method for controlling energy, shocking Yunyun as he realizes he misunderstood the foundation of their power. Jihye explains that Fire Realm battles are decided by energy clashes where every offensive move must overcome an opponent's internal defense. Yunyun finally sees the logic, noting that physical weapons would simply bounce off a master's reinforced energy armor. Tang Jihye explains that when hundreds of energy-infused weapons form a storm, they create a force that counters energy itself. This barrage shreds through a target's defenses, striking their arm and making it impossible to protect the body against so many simultaneous strikes. As the blades slice through the air, she calls it an ultimate technique, designed specifically to battle masters at the Fire Realm. Yunyun analyzes the move, doubting that even a skilled master could maintain that level of energy for long. Tang Jihye sees his confusion and asks if he is wondering how the output is sustained, causing him to break a sweat. The process involves compressing all internal energy and concentrating it into one of the 12 main meridians. True energy then blocks the flow and seals the power within that meridian, so it can be stored. Tang Jihye details a concealment method capable of deceiving even Fire Realm masters who perceive the flow of internal energy. While the process requires sealing his current power, she assures young Yunyun that his insights will allow him to recover his strength quickly. By repeating this sealing process across all 12 main meridians, the internal energy weaves together into a new protective layer called the Dragon Scale. Jihye explains that this barrier far surpasses standard defenses, offering a level of protection comparable to a dragon's hide. Young Yunyun notes the constant mention of dragons in these techniques, wondering if the creators had actually encountered the mythical beasts. This technique also serves as a hidden trump card, as releasing the sealed meridians grants a temporary burst of power 10 times greater than the user's original limit. Young Yunyun asks his mother if the flower rain of the sky technique truly requires releasing his sealed veins. She notes that the oral secrets vanished with the sudden death of 2 clan elders, causing Yunyun to flinch with a nervous sweat. Despite the lost history, she tells him she believes he is the one who can finally master the complete technique. She smiles warmly, calling him her pride and joy. Yunyun is moved by her faith in him, his expression softening as he vows to live up to her expectations as the son of the Poison Phoenix and officially receives the vein-sealing concealment from her. At the Tang family estate, Yunyun reviews his progress, concluding that consuming poison is the most efficient way to restore his internal energy. He drains a bowl of toxins like a miracle elixir, horrifying the girl behind him as he bypasses the standard recovery process. A knock at the door catches his attention, and a masked guard barely has time to announce a visitor before Mirio bursts into the room, eventually breaking into a desperate scream that her sister is going to die. Yeonmyoung stands stunned in his room as Mirio kneels before him, questioning why she hasn't sought out a doctor for her dying sister. Mirio looks up through her tears, explaining that medical experts are useless against this specific affliction, leaving Yeonmyoung to wonder if the girl sustained massive internal damage. Yeonmyoung is visibly shaken as Mirio bows her head to the floor, confessing that her sister is suffering from the terminal 9-yin severed meridians. This affliction traces back to the Northern Sea Ice Palace, a sect built on terminal conditions much like the Blazing Sun Palace. Their warriors transform extreme yin energy into a blessing of ice-based power, but for anyone unable to cultivate those skills, that same cold force becomes a death sentence. Red-haired youth asks Mirio if she and her sister are the true descendants of that ancient lineage. Mirio explains that their ancestors from the Ice Palace joined the Tang family long ago, and while ice arts could cure their terminal condition, the path is no longer open. She points out that the Tang family focuses exclusively on poisons and hidden weapons, leaving no records of ice techniques for them to study. Red-haired youth listens as she describes how the original arts were lost, leading her family to suffer from a hereditary illness that resurfaces every few decades. Mirio begins to mention a possible solution, but red-haired youth interrupts when they reach their destination. Mirio identifies her home, which stands completely encased in a thick layer of frost. Mirio rushes to the bedside, panicking as she realizes her sister's condition has turned for the worse. She leans over the unconscious woman, who is now buried under a heavy layer of frost. The red-haired youth scans the room, noting that the unnatural cold is far more severe than he anticipated, before bluntly stating that he cannot promise her sister will survive. Mirio is paralyzed by the news as he explains the girl has been using her innate energy to hold back the freeze. The ice anatomical figure shows the energy points within her body struggling to maintain a flow against the encroaching ice. Mirio collapses in grief when he reveals her sister has reached her breaking point, forcing all her remaining power into her veins, just to stay alive. Mirio collapses by the bedside, sobbing over the thought that her sister is beyond saving. Her grief breaks only when Yeon Junhyuk reveals that a solution exists. He explains that they can artificially vent the lethal cold from her sister's body, but the process is dangerous, carrying the risk of killing the girl or consuming Yeon Junhyuk himself. He admits his hesitation to risk the life of a friend's sibling, leaving the weight of the choice entirely on Mirio. Knowing they have reached the end of the line, Mirio hardens her resolve and chooses to move forward with the treatment. Mirio tearfully pleads with Yeonmyoung to save her sister, acknowledging the danger he will face. Yeonmyoung closes his eyes and accepts the request. Mirio hesitates as they look at her unconscious sister, finding the requirement to partially undress her for the procedure humiliating. He centers himself and places his fingers on the girl's icy forehead to begin. While Mirio watches anxiously, Yeonmyoung gathers energy in his palm and begins the process of drawing the cold out from each of the 9 meridians. He prepares to move his hand down to the next meridian point, but freezes as he realizes exactly where he needs to place his hand. Despite the awkwardness, Yeonmyoung refuses to stop the treatment now and hovers his hand over Mirio's sister's torso. He channels his energy into her, gritting his teeth as the resistance from the cold spikes against his efforts. Jagged ice begins to form around him from the backlash, but he refuses to back down until the energy is purged. The sheer force of the cold traps the entire building in ice. Mirio panics as the frost begins to consume Yeonmyoung's hand, but he remains steady and refuses to back down even as the ice climbs further up his arm. Gritting his teeth, Yeonmyoung realizes the cold energy is overwhelming his core and will soon kill him. He recalls a lesson from Ijeon's grandfather, a master from the Medicine King Hall, who understood the nature of spirits. The elder explained that medicine and poison are one and the same, defined only by the body's limits. Yeonmyoung treats the frost as a cold poison and triggers his purification technique to save Mirio's sister. The poison spirit manifests from a surge of dark energy. Yeonmyoung watches with a confident smile, noting that the entity is already reacting to the cold being pulled from the girl. The spirit roars as it senses the freezing power, but Yeonmyoung knows that since it perceives the freezing energy as a toxin, it will gorge itself until it is no longer a threat. He commands the entity to devour the energy, and the poison spirit lunges upward to swallow the aura whole. A massive explosion of light erupts as the spirit consumes the frost, finally allowing Mirio's sister to feel warmth. Mirio's sister finally opens her eyes as the frost melts away from her lashes. Yeon-myung keeps his hand pressed to her stomach, drawing out the last of the lethal chill while she realizes the freezing cold is finally gone. Startled by the unfamiliar touch, she sits up immediately. Mirio watches in disbelief, her eyes wide as she realizes her sister is truly back. Mirio's sister looks back, recognizing the young girl standing before her. Tears well up as the weight of her survival hits home, and the two sisters collapse into each other's arms, sharing a desperate embrace. Mirio's sister sits up in bed, realizing that Yeon-myung is the one responsible for her recovery. Mirye watches with a suspicious glare as Yeon-myung keeps his hand pressed against her sister's stomach, but the sister quickly tries to ease the tension and must not be disturbed. Inside his own mind, Yeon-myung recognizes that the energy he has absorbed is as potent as a miracle drug, and he must act before it naturally dissipates. He gathers the swirling blue energy into a concentrated sphere, intending to use the intense cold to force open his closed meridians. As the first meridian fills with power, Yeon-myung opens his eye to track his progress, wondering just how many more he can unlock. 4 distinct orbs of light manifest over his chest, confirming that he has quadrupled his original internal energy. Our MC reflects on his progress, acknowledging the drop in his recent achievements while deciding that drinking poison is his only remaining path to power. His serious mood breaks as he grows flustered, clearing his throat in an attempt to regain his composure. Miso smiles warmly, assuring him that her sister already explained the situation and there is no reason for him to be embarrassed. She begins to thank him for his help just as heavy footsteps approach the room. The girl's father bursts through the door in a panic, calling out for his daughters before freezing at the sight of our hero. His relief turns to rage as he clenches his fist, misinterpreting the scene. From outside the frost-covered building, his accusations echo through the air while Miso and Mirio desperately try to calm him down. Outside the trading company, the bearded man offers a desperate apology for his earlier disrespect. He throws himself to the ground in a deep bow upon realizing he is speaking to the family head, who dismisses the behavior as a natural misunderstanding. The father remains on the ground, weeping with relief that his daughters are finally safe from the illness that took his wife. He recounts how he settled here for his Tang clan wife, only to watch her die from a terminal condition he spent his entire fortune trying to cure. Tears stream down his face as he thanks the man who finally saved his children. The family head helps him to his feet, and the father pledges his absolute loyalty to any future command. Before departing, the hero asks why the business has gone quiet, learning that the rise of the Black Death Alliance has effectively trapped the merchants within the city. Yeon-myung stops in his tracks as a sudden shout rings out. Miso catches up to him, asking if he is really leaving so soon. She steps closer to offer her sincere thanks, swearing that her family will never forget the grace he showed by saving her life. The intensity of her gratitude catches Yeon-myung off guard, leaving him flustered. Her father joins the farewell, waving as he promises to repay the debt, while Yeon-myung makes his exit. Miso watches him walk away and questions if he will be all right, leaving Mirio confused by the sudden concern. Miso remains worried that the effort of curing her terminal condition might have cost him more than he let on. Mirio catches her sister's eye with a knowing smirk, sending Miso into a nervous sweat. She leans in close to tease Miso about her obvious sadness over their guest leaving, forcing a panicked denial and a deep blush. Looking down, Miso finally gives in and asks if her feelings were really that easy to read. As Miso buries her face in her hands, Mirye offers a comforting pat, assuring her that anyone would have the same reaction to a man like him. Miso peeks through her fingers while her sister promises that no one could possibly be more beautiful than her. Mirio smiles as she recalls how our hero looked when he saw Miso, suggesting that our hero is clearly thinking about her as he walks away. He carries a warm smile, imagining the happy family portrait of the people he helped save. Our hero loses himself in a daydream, imagining a life where he and Miso are finally together. His mind drifts through the years, picturing them raising a child and watching a son train with his first wooden sword. The vision carries him through their wedding and a house filled with a growing family until they are an elderly couple sitting peacefully by the water at sunset. Reality hits him like a physical blow, and he flushes with shame upon realizing his imagination went as far as their future grandchildren. As he walks through the city at dusk, he admits that he's never felt this kind of nervous energy around anyone before. He wonders if this is the simple peace of a normal life, and hopes for a chance to return. His expression hardens as he remembers Miso's father warning him about the Black Death Alliance, and how their rise has trapped the citizens within the city walls. Our hero weighs the threat of the Black Death Alliance and their leader, Yu Giljin, identifying their interference in the contest as a disruption he must eventually handle. He knows that their presence in Sichuan province makes a violent confrontation unavoidable. Inside Simhwa Hall, a sweating subordinate reports that the Tang clan is gaining power without restraint. The Simhwa Hall master ignores the report to focus on her meal, but she freezes when a monstrous red aura erupts behind her. A bloodied mouth of broken teeth sneers at her attempt to distance herself from their mission, as the rising Phoenix sect leader, Yoap Injae, warns her that the leader's will is law, and she must remain silent until his rage burns out. Yoap Injae spits out a curse through broken teeth, his rage causing debris to fly as a subordinate cowers in terror. Nearby, the green-robed man questions their orders, frustrated that they are forced to wait while their enemies approach the Fire Mastery realm. The Simhwa Hall master bites her thumb in a fit of anxiety, knowing her current strength isn't enough to avenge Mak Inhu and Zhang Yunsong. She pauses mid-thought as a new strategy takes shape. The red-eyed leader seizes the moment to issue a formal order, commanding that an invitation to the Sichuan gathering be sent directly to the Tang clan head. A wicked smile spreads across the Simhwa Hall master's face as she realizes this event is the perfect trap. She turns to her leader with a desperate plea, claiming the ghosts of her fallen comrades still scream for vengeance in her ears. Her gaze sharpens with a murderous intent, swearing to personally ensure the eradication of the Tang clan. The sweating subordinate gazes up in terror, his eyes welling with tears as the Simhwa Hall master watches him with a glowing red eye. He cries out for forgiveness, but his pleas are cut short when flames erupt across his face. As the screams echo, the Hallmaster smiles and vows to prepare a deadly stage for the Tang clan's young leader.